This is the situation.
You can say that again. It's the only way
to start your day. Yes, Spice FM.
Welcome to the beginning of your day. Good morning, everybody. It's the second day of December 2020. Wednesday, the first Wednesday of December 2020. How are you, City?
Today, on Thursday, switch day?
Wow.
Wednesday.
Today, it is Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Today.
The
2nd of December.
Today,
2nd of
today,
December,
Wednesday.
2020. I am well.
Right. Very, very good. Nduoko,
Oui, monsieur.
how you day?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Super.
And how's the body?
My body day inside clothes, so I beg.
Very good.
It's really not too long.
Very good. It's good to know. So you had a good day yesterday?
I did. I went pineapple shopping.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, are they right?
Yes.
Are they from Thika?
Uganda.
Aye. Those ones. Those are watermelons.
Why are they watermelons? They're actually pineapples. My goodness. They're actually pineapples.
I need to
It
understand.
is, if it's not from Kiambu County, anywhere in Gatundu, in Thika, the Del Monte farm, it's not a pineapple.
I can understand your patriotism.
If it's not from Kwale County,
It's not patriotism. He needs to explain to us.
products.
I'm sure that he has a reason and some very solid logic behind what he's saying.
Okay.
It's now just a question of understanding that very
Please
profound
logic
logic.
us up.
it's just product.
You know,
You haven't tasted
Like,
my pineapple.
It's like saying, sour.
okay.
Sour. So is your pineapple a fruit or a vegetable?
All fruit.
Someone asked me that. The
How did
question
somebody
the other-
ask you that?
Not about the pineapple, but
Oh,
about
okay.
berries. What are berries?
Berries are fruits.
I am not going to respond to trick questions in the morning.
Not in the morning. Should we try after lunch?
Yes, after lunch is good. If you
Okay.
talk to me about fruits after lunch, I'll be
okay.
spot on. I mean, we all know that berries are berries. Now, why are you asking difficult questions in the morning?
No, not me.
Berry. All right. It's like asking me, for instance, a sweet potato. Is it a vegetable?
Is it a tuber?
Tuber? Is it a fruit? It's not a fruit, definitely. Yes. Tuber, it is. Vegetable, yes, it is. It's like, for instance, fish is a vegetable.
Sorry, please, excuse me. Just continue what you want to say. Yeah,
Samaki ni mboga.
City.
Samaki ni mboga.
No, please. Coronavirus.
Welcome to the show. We have a lot of conversations to talk about today. We have many things to talk about. One, we want to look at the state of fighting cancer and dealing with cancer in the country. Then we also want to talk about, the state of our economy. We see what's happening in the markets, in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So we'll want to review that as well. Our report has come out on, taxi hailing apps, especially the biggest one around the world, the one that gets a lot of coverage around the world, Uber, and Uber operations in the country. We'll be talking to some of the taxi drivers this morning on this particular issue. We still continue to have a BBI conversation, so we will have a BBI conversation. Today we'll be joined by somebody from the Secretariat that's coordinating the referendum drive. Okay? So, all those things. But remember, there's COVID. And we'll be talking about Kemsa and what's happening there, where the COVID. Today is the 2nd, by the way. Remember, 5 days to the strike by all medical workers countrywide. Lest you forget. But numbers.
Sure. 551 new cases in Kenya and 5 new deaths. This is up from the 300 and odd so cases on Monday. And now this takes Kenya's numbers now to 84,169. We're looking at 1,474 deaths in the country. And as you said, yes, Kemsa, shame as PPEs rot away. And looking at now these, we'll look at that story. However, if you look at the COVID vaccine specifically, rumors are thriving amidst the trickle of pandemic facts. The World Health Organization is saying, or says it is fighting misinformation that is making it hard for people to make good decisions about their health with the same force it is using to fight the corona pandemic itself. So what they're dealing with now is that because there's talk of vaccine with high rates of efficacy from Pfizer to Moderna across board, what they're seeing is now that there is a recklessness in terms of behavior, and that more and more people around the world are thinking or not needing to put in those measures from social distancing to wearing a face mask to hygiene and such, because they know that there's a vaccine. You see? So people said, okay, well, you know what? In the next few months, there's going to be a vaccine anyway. So we don't need to do all of this because we'll be treated regardless. Now, World Health Organization is saying they're fighting this information as hard as they are fighting the pandemic. So we'll look at that story a little bit later. But now this is affecting numbers around the world. Numbers still continue to increase in different parts. If we look at the world numbers now, we're seeing a total of 64,188,000. And yes, indeed, the United States has now crossed the 14 million mark, with over 100,000 cases found yesterday. The US now is at 14,108,990. And if you look at the numbers that they recorded and reported yesterday, 182,000, one of the highest in the last 2 weeks, 182,172, with unfortunately 2,611 deaths. This is what we are looking at, likely to go higher in the next couple of weeks as we had seen. Okay.
So as you talk about the vaccine and all, I see this is something we're talking about vaccines in Kenya. So the WHO is fighting the issue of vaccine there, and then now Kenya softens its stand on corona vaccine. Dr. Rashid Aman speaking yesterday. He said the government would consider vaccines from other manufacturers. Some of the vaccines Kenya may consider, according to Health CAS, Dr. Rashid Aman, are those from Singapore, South Korea, and China. He says the decision was informed by the National Emergency Response Committee meeting on Monday, which was attended by the president. Kenya is currently taking part in clinical trials for a vaccine by AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford, codenamed Chadox. He said the government is keen on getting vaccines from other countries. So initially, it appeared like, the vibe was saying those that we are trying locally are the ones that we're going to give first preference because they've been tried on our people, so they know they work on.
Yeah, because there's a whole debate
drunk Kenyan water.
Right, there's a whole debate of, okay, thank you very much. We're seeing, it was almost leaning on the patronizing, like, all right, we've tested this, it's coming from Western countries, now we are going to give it to you, and we are accommodating you. So where Rashid Aman was coming from yesterday was almost as if, well, thank you very much. However, we've seen that this has come into the country, it's been tested on Kenyans, so that is what we are going to use.
Whenever you hear of what you call multi-site studies, like this one, and then you hear of the outcome of the research project. It includes findings in places like Kenya. It isn't just in one particular place. All the numbers you hear of, 3,000, 30,000, these aren't in one place. There is no way that you could seek, for instance, permission from the authorities to have regulatory authorities to have emergency use of the drug if there isn't evidence that it has been tested widely. Because if it was tested just amongst a certain group of people, how do you then make it universal? What happens when those people actually take it and it has not been tested with them? So there are certain requirements. By the time you hear all these announcements being made by the three main groups, okay? Remember, these are Western groups. China is already, as we speak,
treating its people.
Yes, as we speak.
Even weeks before the Americans announced theirs, China had actually started treating them.
They had, and their citizens are being vaccinated. So when you talk about this, please remember that a lot of the information we also get has a very serious leaning towards the West. And what is being promoted is something which is primarily pro-West. Do you hear of any, because there's research going on in India. Do you hear of the research going on in India?
No, you wouldn't.
Russia.
No, you don't. Now, the people in this task force within the government would know this because it actually comprises of research scientists, people who understand what's happening in the research world, and it also encompasses people like Omo Anzala, who have actually been working in vaccines for the longest time with the Gavi project. Longest time. So when you work in such projects, it means you are in connection with other people who work on vaccines. So they know. So the advice they're giving is not just careless advice.
It's solid advice.
It's solid advice. They know.
So are they the ones who advise the CS to ask what this vaccine is all about?
I don't know
Disease
what
that
the
comes to your
CS says
body.
and what is advised. That one I cannot even comment on.
Please, let's not. Are they the ones that give them that?
That I cannot comment on. That I
Unfortunately,
cannot
no.
comment on.
Okay. So, worries from certain countries. We look specifically at the Western European nations who are also suffering from high numbers and continue to rise, from France to Spain, the UK, Italy. Still looking at high numbers there. Germany, interestingly enough, Germany, even with the high numbers of infections, they have some of the lowest reported deaths. They've been able to, keep this at bay, more or less. And this is only in comparison to some of the other countries that are in the same bracket, right? So, for an example, we have France with 2.2 million cases and 53,000 deaths. You have Germany with 1 million cases and 17,000 deaths. So, Germany, we're looking at a total case population of 12,940, whereby in France, you're looking at 34,000, almost 3 times the number. And these are countries in very close proximity to one another. The United Kingdom, for example, per case, 24,150 per 1 million in terms of caseload per population. And Italy at 26,825. Italy specifically, we're still looking at some of the highest numbers they're recording since the outbreak of COVID-19 at the very beginning in February and March of this year. So it's still being monitored, still being watched, still an opportunity to save lives, still an opportunity to be careful, even as people await the much touted vaccines. So again, important to keep in place those measures, whether there's a vaccine in the offing or not.
Okay. You want to say something, CG?
You know, one of the things about vaccines that perhaps we will discuss at a later date, we are talking about the things we know. We need to talk about the things we also don't know. Because when someone tells you that it's 95% efficacious, 70%, these are figures. The other percentage that doesn't qualify as being efficacious, what is it? What does it represent? And what is it? Even if you say that the possibility of harm is at a minimum, fine. But it is important to understand what we're talking about in detail. But we will look at that at a later date.
Actually, that would be a very important thing to get to understand. When you say 75%, what exactly does
Yes,
that
I mean, and that 25%, what exactly are you talking about? The 25% which isn't efficacious.
missed, right?
Yes. But even more importantly, you see, there's
a 75% chance of it giving you the immunity that you require.
Yes, and the other 25%, what will it do? For that, it will
Will
not
not
give you the
protect
immunity
you.
we have understood, yes. But what
What
else?
else was
will
it
do?
likely to do?
What are the contraindications?
Okay.
And then there's also a little detail here. Will people be willing to take it?
You still have the anti-vaxxers who are very serious, regardless.
Those
they're
guys are still
there.
alive.
They're still alive, touting
but
their
we've,
mission.
We've had it in this country as well. Yes. So,
Yeah, yep. In fact, being led by senior religious organizations.
yes,
and
exactly.
people.
Very senior.
Why? It's 6:15. It's time for us to take a break, time for us to look at the weather, and then it will be time for us to come and say good morning to everybody who says good morning to us, because the live stream is up. Spice FM, KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Brian Amulioto, our social media producer, is already busy. He's asking you to say hello, and we will say hello back at you. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Okay, Nairobi, raining in some parts this morning at 17 degrees. Expect partly sunny skies later. A high will be 25. And the skies will be cloudy this evening. The low today will be 16. Let's take a look then into Nakuru, where it's mostly clear at 20. Expect partly sunny skies as well, the high of 24, mostly cloudy going into the evening with a low of 14. In Nyeri this morning, 17 degrees and mostly cloudy. Expect partly sunny skies as well. High will be 26 and rain expected towards the evening. Sky will also be mostly cloudy with a low of 13. Taking a look into Eldoret, where it's mostly clear at the moment. Sunny skies partly and some clouds. The high will be 24 and cloudy conditions with a low of 11 as we go into the later part of the day. Kisumu, rain showers this morning at 20. Partly sunny conditions later. The highs will be 20 and quite humid in Kisumu today. Skies will be mostly cloudy. The low will be 20 as you expect rains going into the evening. Kakamega this morning is mostly clear at 20. Also, mostly cloudy conditions this morning with a high of 28. Mostly cloudy conditions as you go well into the evening with a low of 15. In Mombasa, light rain this morning at 25. Scattered rain showers throughout the day with a high of 30. And also light rain expected well into the evening with a low of 25. Into Malindi this morning, it's also raining at 20. Skies will be mostly cloudy through the day with highs of 27 and the low of 16. In Kampala, looking out into Uganda, it's partly cloudy at 18 degrees and the high will be 27 today. Mostly cloudy conditions with a low of 17 as you go through into the afternoon. It's rain showers this morning in Dar es Salaam at 26. Light rain expected throughout today with a high of 29 and expecting rain showers through into the evening with a low of 25. In Johannesburg, it's 16 degrees and clear conditions. Expect sunny skies throughout the day with a high of 27. Partly cloudy conditions with a low of 13 going into the afternoon. Taking a look at Lagos, it's mostly clear at 26. We will see a highs of 29 today and a quite humid day in the Nigerian commercial capital. All right, taking a look then into Kinshasa. Light rain expected during the day. It's currently raining at 24. The highs will be 30. Thunderstorms throughout most of today with a low of 24. All right, into Beijing. 0 and sunny. Almost at freezing today. Clear skies, however, with a low of -1. Temperatures below freezing. It's 7 degrees and cloudy in Paris at the moment. The skies will be cloudy with a high of 8 and a low of 6.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Where are you? Good morning to you. This is the second day of December 2020. It's Wednesday, and we are glad that you joined us this morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. So, who are the tweeter birds early and up and about this morning?
Alex Mbogo is live from Kamwenja.
Kamwenja. All right.
City West Kamwenja.
Where Alex Mbogo is.
I don't know. It sounds like it's somewhere in Meru, in Embu.
I don't know. Solo Were says, good morning. Even when I'm quiet, just know I'm here. And County 26, he says, remains County number 26. So Eric and City, there you go.
So you're still in County number 26?
Yes, and he says it remains
It's
just
the
that.
same one.
We're still waiting for you to tell us where that is.
It has not been changed or moved.
To 28? No, not today.
Very good.
Uh-huh.
County number 26 is the last county in former Rift Valley. It's in Western. I'll tell you. I told you the last time.
No, you didn't.
Okay,
Harold
go
Ayodo
on.
is tuned in this morning from South Sea and says, good morning. Good morning. Always informative listening to you guys from Mombasa. And that's Ainley Steve Benson Momo. Good morning. Tuned in. Waterman Jeffrey's tuned in from Minneapolis, he says. Wilbur tuned in this morning from Eldoret. And Lawrence says, good morning. Beatty Astley is tuning from Machakos and says, good morning. Mike Kiburu from Nyeri. Good morning. George Otieno is tuning from St. Bernard's Otaro Secondary School, Kanjira location, Ratronyo, North Sub-County.
St. Bernard's.
Yes. And
Okay.
Samuel Kiplagat says, good morning, Eric and CT. I'm tuning from Eldoret, waiting for an informative program. And Sharage Mwai, guess where? He's on the Nairobi
Sharage
commuter train.
Why is on the train?
Yes.
Okay. Sharage, we wish you all the best as you travel on the train to the city center from
Ruiru.
Ruiru, yes. County number 026 is still the same, okay? It's in the former Rift Valley province. It's the Trans Nzoia.
Now that you've said it, I will not forget.
Remember that,
I will.
okay? It's in Trans Nzoia County. Trans Nzoia. Do you know
It's
the
County 26.
Do you know the headquarters of Trans Nzoia County?
Transoya. I'm not certain, really. Now that you mentioned it, it's clear. No.
It's Kitale.
Well done.
Ni pale Kitale.
That is Transoya.
When they look like this, they see the Charangani Hills. When they look like this, they see the other hills.
Why is it called Transoya?
It's in Trans.
It. Okay.
Why do I ask this question?
I don't know. You set yourself up every
For
time.
the longest time. City, what is today's proverb?
You know, common sense.
Oh, here we go.
He thinks he's going to get away with it, is he? He's a genius dressed in working clothes.
Common sense is a genius dressed in working clothes.
Okay.
Hiyo umejitungia City.
You know, the beauty of this thing is
Umeanza kuwa mhenga.
you can't prove it. However,
To sound intelligent.
you know, actually it is. I've been looking at even modern proverbs, and this falls in the category of modern proverbs. What got me thinking about this was a saying that is attributed to one Chinua Achebe. Okay? And I'm paraphrasing what Chinua Achebe is said to have said. Okay? Until lions have their own storyteller, the role of the hunter will always be glorified. That's Chinua Achebe,
It is.
without doubt. The other one is not Chinua Achebe, and neither is it me. Yes, it's an African proverb.
Chinua Muga. I now know what the C means in your name. Okay, let's look at the headlines.
Okay. So you know I'm going to jump on this one, right?
You jump.
COVID essentials rot at Kemsa as threats revealed. The agency officials were directed by EACC not to touch the equipment as procurement boss spills the beans about tenders. And that's a subheadline. It has emerged that there were threats to make top Kenya Medical Supplies Agency Kemsa officials disappear. Another one of my favorite words. If they dithered in awarding multi-billion shilling COVID-19 tenders. Shall I read that again? This comes as the agency warned that the value of stocks being investigated is dropping. Yesterday, Edward Joroge, the Kemsa acting CEO, told the Senate Committee on Health that supplies which are in their stores will continue losing value until the EACC gives it clearance to dispose of it. EACC is investigating an alleged 7.8 billion corruption scandal at Kemsa, which led to the suspension of distribution of the supplies. EACC said I quote now, EACC said we should not touch the equipment unless they've given us a go-ahead. There is nothing we can do. And appearing before the Parliamentary Public Investment Committee, suspended Kemsa procurement boss Charles Juma turned the tables on the suspended CEO, John Manjari, claiming that he bypassed the procurement office to award tenders in excess of 2 billion shillings for COVID-19 essentials to choice companies. He told the PIC that the commitment of 8 companies, and it goes on to list them, were all issued in Manjari's office. So he was aware that this was taking place. He singled out one. The suspended procurement boss said that they were approved and issued with commitment letters by Manjari himself without the knowledge of the procurement office. So there is a bus, and now people are all throwing each other under it.
Interesting. In The Nation, the account of the same proceedings on The Nation actually says that this suspended procurement boss says the former CEO, the suspended CEO, told him, you know what, I am under serious pressure from what the suspended procurement boss called the deep state. He says the CEO told him he was under serious pressure from the deep state, that he needed to award tenders to certain companies or else he'll be disappeared. As a result of the intimidation, the suspended Kemsa procurement manager, Charles Juma, told MPs the shadowy officials got tenders worth 2.1 billion shillings, which were given to 8 companies that did not go through the procurement process. He told them that Manjari, the then Kemsa CEO, informed him that he was under pressure from the deep state operatives who insisted that certain companies must be awarded the tender. According to him, letters to the 8 companies were issued by Manjari himself, who ignored and did not consult with the procurement department, as is the norm. He told him, so, hey, Bona CEO, but why are we doing this? He told him, you know what, you don't sit in this office, and therefore you don't know what I am going through. I'm under pressure, my friend. I'm under pressure to act in a particular way. This is according to now what he says the CEO told him. He told him, I am under serious pressure. He singles out now one particular incident where he says, on the day the CEO directed the secretary to give so sometimes the CEO then would not even go to the manager. He'd go to the secretary, to the manager, and tell him, can you give a commitment letter to certain company? Okay. On the day that the CEO was directing the secretary to give a commitment letter to a company called Shop and Buy, this is the procurement manager, went to the CEO's office and found Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja there.
Yep.
He did not say that Johnson Sakaja is the one who got the tender. He didn't say that Johnson Sakaja is in any way involved in Shop and Buy, but he just insinuated. On that day, the person who was in the office was the senator. Now, the PIC was like, okay, we need the CR12s tabled before the committee do not indicate that the senator is listed as a director or a shareholder of this company. So there is nothing that is linking the Sakaja to Shop and Buy. But they said we need to investigate then who this deep state is. Pressure from all quarters.
If we think that it only begins and ends with Kemsa, headline in the Standard, Rotich, I was fixed. This, again, is passing the buck. Yes, Kemsa seems to have been passing the buck of late, but we are back to the issue of Arror and Kimwarer. Okay? Now, for over 5 years, former CS Treasury, Henry Rich was one of the most sought-after persons in government. Then came the big cloud of Arror and Kimwarer dams. Now he tells the court that he was made a sacrificial lamb in a project he had no procurement control over, and that had been sanctioned at cabinet level. So, my friend, if you thought that these people were just throwing each other under the bus, here comes an even bigger bus. Now, being thrown under the bus are people in the cabinet. And you know, when you talk about cabinet, you're going to bring in the president and you're going to bring in the deputy because somebody has to chair these cabinet meetings.
So it's very clear anyway that the cabinet had sanctioned. That's why Arror and Kimwarer was a government project.
Yes.
It was obviously sanctioned at cabinet level. Rotich goes further to say that the procurement, the signing of contract and all was done by the KVDA. And this is the Kerio Valley Development Authority, and that he also claims that he had received instructions from the then Environment CS And this is, what's her name? She's currently the High Commissioner in Funds, the Ambassador in
Please
Funds.
carry on.
Right? And Miss Judy Wahungu. So Judy Wahungu is the one who had written to this Treasury CS as the Minister in charge of Environment, said, all right, we've gone through this, the procurement, the money that is needed, this is what is required. Treasury takes this to the former Attorney General and says, we need your legal advice and our opinion on this. According to Mr. Rotich, he says, former Attorney General Githu Muigai looked at it and told Rotich, it's okay, you can sign. And that's why Rotich signed.
Did the former Attorney General actually write is there documentation to prove that he okayed it? Because, we're talking about hearsay here. And when I read this article, it is as though Mr. Rotich was not the CS for Treasury. It's as though he was just an individual who worked in Treasury, who was being pushed back and forth. Surely, when he talks about instructions being given, who does the CS report to?
He reports to his appointing authority, not instructions really, but you've got to remember, as a person who is sitting in the National Treasury, you are not the one who's executing a project.
Secondly,
so the person who's executing a project, the ministry in charge of execution of that project, will have to write and say, this is so, we have gone through the due process, and this is it. We have passed, this is what we require. The Attorney General, the chief legal advisor to the government, says, I've looked through the documentation, I've looked through the contracting, and it's fine.
Very true indeed. Remember when you talk about cabinet, he was in cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay, was he not?
He was.
Precisely. So, who is it who is in charge of ensuring that monies are paid? Because this whole thing became an issue because money was paid.
Yeah.
Was it not his docket?
It is his docket to ensure that money is paid. So he did his job, right?
That job that he did, I think, is what has come back to bite him.
To bite him.
Yes.
Literally.
Now, he is also claiming, and loudly now, that he was a setup. When you're in such a position and as sensitive as Treasury, that's the last thing you really want to hear. And if indeed it is true, then the question that I had asked earlier, I would ask now. Really, were you the right person for the job? Because when you take a certain action, do you not understand the consequences? If indeed, is it you realize you're set up after the event, or did you know you're being set up even then?
As in, when things were happening, you did not really understand what was going on.
And this is a seasoned.
If you follow due diligence, then you'll be... That's it, maybe. You follow due diligence. You're there, you follow due diligence.
Well,
your job is the keeper of the money.
Actually, it is the keeper of the money indeed. And is there evidence that he advised against certain procedures? Is there evidence that there's certain things he did to forestall the process? Anyway, this is what the courts are for, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Exactly.
let's
All
wait and
this
see
in court.
what will happen when this matter comes to court.
27 minutes to 7. Time for us to take another break and then see what's happening on the roads and whether that train has moved closer to the city center. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
All right, it's looking good on the Thika Superhighway this morning. Getting into the CBD right now is not too painful. Likely to see those conditions for some time. Going to get to the Pangani underpass, and it's going to take some time, but it's not too bad right now. Thika Road looking very good. Jogo Road, the traffic starts at Hamza, but it's moving, so there's not much of an issue there as you get to the roundabout at the City Stadium, either then going towards industrial area or towards the CBD. They're not causing too much of a headache. It's already building up right around the SGR on Mombasa Road. It's going to take you to the Cabanas very slowly and then out towards General Motors. But at this moment, we don't see it being too bad. We seem to have been able to get into the movement with the construction of the expressway. So being able to understand now what's happening with traffic. All right, we're looking at reports that visibility is low right around Westlands. And so it slows down traffic then as you're trying to get into the CBD. The bypass at Red Hill is working this morning. Not too much of an issue there. We'll see what traffic looks like in about half an hour or so, but for now it looks pretty good, guys. Spice of MKE, talk to us and let us know what it is that you see, or if you're stuck somewhere, or if you find a route that nobody else has found that will get you into the city sooner. Or text 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
24
done right.
We're looking at the headlines. Julia says, City, why don't you coin a quotable quote for Uhuru? We can't let him leave office without one.
I will give the matter due thought. Yes, I have heard. I will think of an appropriate quote. I will look for an appropriate proverb.
Regardless of what you think, you give us something. Irregardless of what you think.
Yes. Regardless of what I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
When George Bush was in office, W, not HW, there were things that are called Bushisms. Things that Bush would say are called Bushisms.
Are they not really?
Called Bushisms. For example, you couldn't say nuclear, he said nuclear. So we need to come up with Uhuruisms like irregardless.
There'll be many. When you're in the public eye and the public domain as often as the president is, there are many isms that will be related to you. It's just a question of gathering one's, not mind, gathering one's information, and something will come up.
Something will come up.
Yes.
Like job cuts are coming up. According to Treasury CS Ukuriatani, you see, we went to the IMF, and we are seeking some 250 billion shillings loan, right? Now, we have to merge or dissolve hundreds of state corporations, a move that's likely to see thousands of civil servants lose their jobs. To the latest restructuring, which is expected to start after Christmas, is one of the key conditions of the deal that Kenya has struck with the IMF for release of crucial funding for budgetary support. This deal reminds everybody of the 1990s-style structural adjustment programs that saw civil servants sent home as a condition of Kenya receiving aid from the World Bank and the IMF. Yesterday, Treasury CS Ukuriatani said the government has reached the tough conclusion that many state enterprises need to be restructured because, to quote him, at the moment, some of them are actually a burden on the exchequer. In a statement on the 20th of November, the IMF said Kenyan authorities had agreed to take up either of the highly conditional extended fund facility or extended credit facility from a Washington-based institution. This arrangement, which is set to begin in January, will see us receive 250 billion shillings.
Nice.
So the Treasury CS says, man, things have got to happen. And in order for us to be able to manage this government very well, some of the state corporations will either be merged, some will be dissolved, some will partner. We are going to work on structural reforms heavily.
And these loans that we want to now get, are they the soft variety? Are they commercial variety?
It is either going to be that extended fund facility or the extended credit facility. When it comes to the IMF, it's not like the commercial loans.
And are we going to borrow in euros or are we going to borrow in dollars? Because right now, dollars are expensive.
Kinaumana.
114.
Kinaumana on that
Yes,
front.
yes.
Yeah.
A joke right
So if you
now.
just look at the state corporations and how they're performing, Kenya is looking for 250B, right?
Yes.
We have 247 parastatals in the country. 247. 127 of them, that is more than half, are registering losses or deficits in the last financial year. The number of civil servants as of 2018, 69,445 working there. 24.2 billion shillings is the losses registered by the Kenya Railways Corporation last year, making the biggest loss-making state entity. The overall profitability of commercial parastatals, a drop of 91%, they recorded 5.1 billion shillings overall profitability. So, state parastatals, all 247 of them, are many, more than half, loss-making state corporations. So the issue of state corporations is a can that has been kicked down the road. When the Jubilee administration took office in 2013, one of the first things that the president did was appoint a team to review and look at what needs to be done to have a lean and efficient state corporation regime. A report was given to them. It talked about very many far-reaching reforms that needed to take place. That report, so that kabook shelf where reports sit. It's
Where
there.
reports go to die.
Where it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the history of Kenya, just go to reports.
There are many.
Very many reports. It's one of them. So we are likely to going to see people losing jobs.
Yeah, unfortunately. Okay, so public schools to get 6,674 interns. The shortage, obviously now of teaching staff, is being made worse by those who are being told to work from home. The Teacher Service Commission is hiring this number to ease the staffing shortage in public schools ahead of the January 4th reopening. TSC Chief Executive Nancy Masharia said that 1,198 slots are for primary and the remaining 4,676 are for secondary schools. It's part of the government's COVID-19 economic stimulus program announced in the 7th presidential address on the pandemic on the 23rd of May. The figure is nearly half of the number TSC was to hire before January. The commission was allocated 2.4 billion to recruit 12,000 interns under the program. And the government is yet to announce the 1,000 ICT intern positions to support digital learning in public schools announced by the president. She had earlier said that the TSC needed 17 billion to recruit more than 12,000 teachers before schools reopen. Clearly, that is not going to happen. Schools will be facing an acute staffing problem when they reopen, as 16,645 teachers who are 58 years and above are expected to work from home. Primary school teachers above 58 are 14,333, while those in secondary are 2,651. So with the hiring of these interns, they hope that this is going to be able to help in education come the 4th of January.
Okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So internship lasts how long?
Well,
Is it 1 term? Is it 2 terms? Is it a year? What's the plan?
well, they will. This is the thing. They've not.
Or is it just a way of the government saying we are hiring you on short-term contracts?
It's a year. It's a year's program.
A year's program.
Right.
Renewable.
Well, what they've said is that after this year, they will be given certificates. So that means that it ends in something. Now, we don't know if by then they would have been able to get their ducks in the row so that they're not just hiring interns, but they're hiring teachers. So obviously, this is some kind of teaching practice as an intern. Then there's a possibility of then you being hired as a full-fledged teacher thereafter. And hopefully by then, they would have gotten these funds that they need to be able to hire more.
So it's an entry point.
Yes, it is.
We
Kind
can't
of like
we can't take you up on permanent
management trainee program
pensionable.
kind
We
of
just
thing.
take you in as
And you
an
paid an
intern for a year.
allowance,
You
yeah.
paid some allowance. And then after a year, tutaongea.
Yeah, so you can imagine if they're now going to hire the 12,000 teachers that they want to,
They'll start with the
they'll
6,000.
obviously have an established pool from these interns that they've already worked with.
Anyway,
City, what is it? Just speak your mind.
no, I will not speak my mind. Let me read what a headline
Okay.
in the Business Daily, page 13. Floating bridge threatens to sink Likoni cable car plan. Now, there have been lots of plans to help ease this problem that we've had of crossing that channel from Likoni to the mainland, or rather from the island to the mainland, with a floating bridge, which is now being built in an area called Liwatoni. Okay. However, what perhaps many people do not know is that there had been a plan that a private-public partnership with an Australian company that had been in the offing. Now, the idea was to actually put up a cable car, pylons running up in the air.
Above, yeah.
Yes. Now, the cable system was supposed to ferry. It was supposed to have a total of 28 of these cabins and a maximum of 5,500 passengers per hour crossing the channel in 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Okay.
And the whole process was supposed to take a period of, say, 12 to 18 months. start to finish.
Okay.
But that doesn't seem to be a discussion. But what this brings out is that there was a concerted effort to ensure that this problem of people crossing the ferry was sorted out. Because those numbers, if you look at the numbers at the coast and look at the congested manner, it hasn't changed, by the way. Even if you have a point where people sanitize, but once they get into the ferry, they're in close contact with each other. It is a nightmare with regards to COVID.
So what I'm not understanding is how one project would point to a death knell of the other.
It is a suggestion that it might. I don't think it will. I simply think that when someone writes an article, sometimes they are sort of like trying to forecast and see, will it? I don't think it will. Because
So it may question the viability of the other project.
yes, but remember, my friend, even as we talk about the floating bridge, which is meant for passengers, there is a plan to have built a bridge right across. Well, okay, there's the Dongoku. Changamu area, you go around it. There was that plan. Okay? Then there was a plan to, part of the master plan that JICA, the Japanese Agency for Development, brought up. It was a 30-year plan. Supposed to build a bridge. Now, that actually, you drive over that particular channel. Now, what was tricky was that it has to be high enough to ensure that ships...
commercial vessels
Yes.
can pass.
But on the other hand, that isn't the only option. One has seen options of bridges that can move
Yeah.
and allow passage. But what is clear to me is this. There were plans underway, and we have seen the footbridge taking place, and we have seen these other plans taking place. So it means, even as we speak about the ineptitude of the government, could this particular process that we are seeing, could it be mirrored in other areas like, say, health? Because the concerted effort to build these bridges and to ensure that that problem is resolved, it's there, it's clear for anyone who wants to see. And that's a government initiative.
Yeah.
Now, that same focus that is going to solve an age-old problem, can that same focus also be steered in the direction of, say, the health and education systems in the country?
Can it be?
It should.
It should be.
And the issue of implementation timelines also is important. How long has the talk of that footbridge taken? How long has the talk of these cable cars taken? The Dongokundu bypass, which is now complete, how long has that
Did it
taken?
take?
These are things that are there. They are there in the plan and in the pipeline. And
Oh, they started a long time ago, by the way.
things like this cable car has been there for long, and then now we'll have other issues of, there's no power, so the cable car went, and then halfway, stima ikapotea.
You know, one of the discussions, of
Washa
course,
generator, kuna mafuta.
one of the discussions that we always have with regards to this is not that the projects were not feasible. For them to be discussed, due diligence was done, and it was determined that these projects could work, and they could be initiated, they could be finished. However, the usual perennial issue when it comes to procurement,
Shida too. No?
Yes. Okay. So there's been this whole back and forth about Sports Pesa and whether they're going to be allowed back into the country, whether the license is going to be renewed, who's been taken to court and whatnot. So apparently the betting company has now resumed activity amid a government probe and questions about its new shareholding structure that could in the coming days expose the skeletons in its closet. Its Kenyan website was live yesterday and accepting bets despite a government threat to cancel its operating license and scuttle its comeback, backed by a court order and fueled by an intense desire to reclaim the top spot in Kenya's lucrative betting industry. SportPesa appears highly determined to get back in the game. Its top officials are set to appear before the Betting Control and Licensing Board tomorrow to answer questions regarding the firm's ownership and directorship. The board had on October 31st suspended the operating license of Milestones Games Limited for using SportPesa as its trade name, only for Lady Justice Pauline Nyamweya to overturn the ruling. The reprieve was, however, short-lived, as the board found out that among the shareholders of Milestones was SportPesa CEO Ronald Karori, through several masked layers of ownership. So there are many things going on here. Whether they'll be allowed back in, whether their license will be suspended or completely withdrawn. They, however, have said, it's okay, let these things continue. We are going live and bringing this back into the Kenyan market. And of course, there are many conversations around the morality of betting, but the truth be that many people have picked it up and are using it as a way to, get some wealth here and there, albeit quick and not everlasting. But there's an excitement about this.
It's as old as time.
And the boardroom was, man. I mean, when you get to a point where you're making that kind of money, and people are trying to, appear to be, elbowing each other out of the gravy train, expect fights.
But is this not what is also often suggested as what happens when it comes to procurement issues within government? It's like a falling out among scoundrels. Here, people had agreed to pilfer and to pillage the state, and then something doesn't quite go as planned, and someone says, okay,
I'll expose you.
fine. Since I am in the know, wait and see. I will give you the gift of sight. I am going to say everything that I need to say about this thing, and I will mention you by name. Yes.
I'll expose you properly.
I will expose you. And then everyone goes to the dogs.
From Parliament, a parliamentary committee is asking the central bank to also regulate mobile loan apps in banks. So, the banking industry regulator is gearing up to start policing the hitherto unregulated digital lenders that have been criticized for predatory lending through the CBK Amendment Bill 2020, okay? Digital lending apps by local commercial banks, including products such as Fuliza, Mshwari, KCB, M-Pesa, account for a substantial chunk of mobile loans. But the companies offering the products are regulated. The banks are regulated, all right? But the law restricts the CBK to regulate only the traditional banking products. That means these new mobile products are not regulated. So they can come up and, come up with whatever interest rate and other conditionalities. The Senate Committee on Finance and Budget, during a virtual meeting with the CBK Governor, Patrick Njoroge, yesterday said banks' mobile loan products also need to be regulated, alongside those of other digital lenders that have had a free hand in pricing their loans. According to Aaron Cheriot, the member of the committee and Kericho senator, the banks are also guilty of charging high interest rates or facilitation fees, which in some instances are at par with those charged by the unregulated players. So you complain about those other, mobile lenders and how much they're charging, and then you go to the formal one in the bank and you find a product, and that product, if you look at the facilitation fee, you look at the interest rate being charged, not different.
No.
So the Senate committee is basically telling the CBK, okay, now that there's this CBK Amendment Bill 2020 that you also bring in, let's see how you can be given the powers to regulate all lending in the country, whether it be mobile, whether it be traditional, whatever.
That discussion has been in the offing for some time, has it not? Eric, let me ask a question, because this I honestly don't know. Okay, do we have the capacity to actually produce enough maize to meet the demand in this country?
Do we have the capacity to produce maize to
Yes.
meet the demand
In this
of maize
country?
in this country?
Yes. Do we do so? Can we do so? This is
don't
why I ask, because
I don't know.
every year, without fail,
We must import maize.
yes, without fail, sugar, I understand. I come from a sugar growing area. Even if you sum up all our production units, we do not produce
not
enough. That much I know. But what about maize?
It's been said before, something similar to that we also don't have that capacity to produce enough
You see now,
because of a number of things.
ranging from
including farming practices, input costs, the soil, the condition of our soil, and the yield per acre, yield per hectare, all those things. Currently,
Kenya Agricultural Research Institute
Thank you.
have been at this for the longest time, and they sought to resolve some of the issues that you're raising,
yep,
to actually come up with a grain that can withstand, can substitute, can
there are very many
accommodate.
things that have been said, including the alkalizing the soil, because they say our soils have become completely acidic in very many other parts of the country because of what we've put in the soil, the fertilizer that we've put, the chemicals that we've put. So the soils have become acidic, and that reduces the yield. So there needs to be a program that is done to make sure that we actually now deal with that soil. Until we do that, our capacity is limited.
The unfortunate thing that the capacity is limited by choices, unfortunately. That there's certain things that can be done that won't be done. I remember specifically when there was a project that was then highlighted by the Israeli High Commission here. And there was a cohort of Israeli farmers that came to Kenya in the 2000s and took away samples of Kenya's soil, right? At that point, we were not suffering from the high acidity levels that we are seeing today. Went back and in different parts of Tel Aviv were then able to recreate the type of soil that exists in Kenya. And that is what they then used to grow apples that, guess what they do? Export back to Kenya.
Remember that, again, this same government that you speak of, the Israeli government, had sought to help us set up an irrigation scheme over a very large space in this country that is fertile and doesn't have these problems that we're speaking of acidity, because we know we have maize-growing areas that we consider to be the maize-growing areas, but there were others that were good. Remember, it's the same land in Tana River that at some point there was a discussion with some Middle Eastern country who had sought to lease. Now, again, it boils down to, if we do not have enough food to feed our people, why don't we take steps to ensure that we can? Now, if I look at that irrigation scheme and how it went belly up, it tells me that isn't the intention of some people who are in authority.
Yeah. There are very many things that go. Even sugar, by the way, if we basically just looked at what to do with sugar,
we would.
All the entire sugar belt in the Nyanza and all the entire sugar belt in the coast, the Ramisis and the rest, it is possible.
It is very, very possible
to actually do something.
It is very, very possible.
Improve, even if we are not then able to meet our current consumption needs, but we'd get very close to meeting that need. We'd be having just an importation quota of maybe about 5% or so. Same with our grain, the maize. It's possible.
It is really very possible.
Yeah.
It is very, very possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, when issues like these become matters that are central to any campaign that a politician has to respond to in seeking an office, then we'll likely see the changes that will be necessary to ensure that this food security we keep talking about stops being something elusive, but it actually becomes a reality.
Sonko's ouster is well on course, and the Nairobi ward reps who had attended a meeting in support of the embattled governor saying, oh, you know, this one can't happen. Now, the ones who want him out are saying this is going to happen. The nation has learned that some of the county legislators who were on Monday addressing the press in support of Sonko have converged in a discrete location where they will be based until the motion is dispensed with. They'll make sure that they do not appear. The MCAs switched off their phones and they were unreachable for the better part of the day. We're in a place where I cannot reveal. But what you should know is that the impeachment motion is going to fail. Okay. That's what one of the MCAs told the Nation reporter. But Minority Whip Peter Imwatok was yesterday confident of seeing the motion through. We are going to proceed with the impeachment, and we still have we are still expecting the governor to appear before the assembly at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow to defend himself.
Drama, drama, drama.
This train is doing that thing.
It is, isn't it? And what do they want to impeach the governor for again?
Many things.
That whole list that is normally
there's
provided.
A long list, but one of them is, basically on the agreement of funds that should be then sent to the NMS to allow them do their work.
Yeah.
And Sonko is sitting on this.
But
they
there's
don't
some
like it.
MCAs. Remember the MCAs of Kirinyaga who slept in the county assembly so that nobody interferes with them?
Yeah.
So there are some MCAs who are sleeping in some other area so that they're not interfered with.
Isn't it reminiscent of the days when we had councillors?
Of course.
And you wanted a vote, you sort of like sequestered a certain number in a certain secretive place
location.
and only brought them in on the day of the vote.
Bas.
Right.
Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, it's not looking too bad today. Let's look at what's going on Thika Road. Coming into the CBD is not taking anybody too long right now. We're going to get stuck right around the underpass and the overpasses. But getting onto Forest Road also will allow you to get into town without an issue this morning. It's a low visibility right around Westlands, coming then into the CBD. So everything is slowing down just a little bit there. The Red Hill bypass can also be used this morning. It's not causing too much of an issue. You can use that to get out of Westlands into the CBD. Moving well also along Jogo Road. Mombasa Road also slowing down just a little bit. We're going to see traffic then from the SGR all the way through to General Motors. After the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, it's picked up on Uhuru Highway. So it's slow there. Looking good on Langata Road so far, so good. We'll slow down also just a little bit at the Timor roundabout. Going towards Bagadi Way, we also know that the construction is taking place there. So expecting to see heightened levels of traffic there. Looking pretty good this Wednesday morning. So far, so good. Half an hour or so will let us know how much it will get worse or better. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to
2.5
start your
minutes
day.
After 7 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's The Situation Room. This and every morning you have CT, you have Eric, you have Ndu. We are now live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. Welcome to our audience on KTN Home. We are glad that you're joining us. We broadcast the show every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM and online, Spice FM KE, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So, for today's proverb, CT Muga, Chaza Kamawere.
Right. Common sense is a genius dressed in working clothes.
Common sense is a genius dressed in working clothes. All right. So part B of the question. Any person dressed in working clothes is a genius.
Well, if you want to look at it literally, certainly we could consider that perspective as being one of the perspectives, but that should be considered. However, if you consider that this is a proverb, then we will look for the hidden meaning. Even when it appears to be really very obvious, we will still look.
We still look for the hidden meaning of it.
Yes, we will.
It'll be very interesting to actually get to understand what made you pick this particular proverb. And like you said, this is one of the modern day proverbs.
The modern day proverbs that come into being. And the reason why they qualify as proverbs is, well, one, it's a thought process that represents an activity, something that someone has seen, something which they think ought to be considered as a point of learning for whatever reason. And it moves its way up and it becomes something that people quote and is considered a proverb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's have a cancer conversation for the next half hour. As you know, cancer is the third highest cause of death in Kenya. 7% of deaths in Kenya are attributed to cancer. This is after infectious diseases and cardiovascular diseases. Annual incidence of cancer increased from 37,000 cases in 2012, and by 2018, those cases had reached 47,887. The annual mortality rate also rose to 32,987 from 28,500 in 2012. The majority of these cases are diagnosed late. We are seeing younger demographics being diagnosed with the disease. Now, the issue of cancer also comes in when you start thinking about the cost of treatment. Everything, as we've had very many times, we've had a conversation around cancer. There is the issue of screening and the availability of screening across the country, the availability of information on screening and how you go to get screened, the whole issue of, somebody you go for screening and the doctor tells you, I'm noticing something, so we need to do a biopsy, and then we need to send this to Germany. In some cases, you just hear Germany, I don't know, 2 weeks, and then it comes back and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what is this all about? And the next thing is you hear somebody has then been diagnosed with cancer, depending on the stage of cancer, a kind of treatment that they're going through. Start thinking, how many cows do I have? What extra piece of land do I have? Where am I going to get the money? That's the thing that comes when you hear someone has been diagnosed with cancer. The second thing that you start thinking about is, this is going to be an expensive journey. Are we ready as a society? Are we ready as a community, as a family, to go through this journey with this person? So this is an issue that really, really happens a lot. And the number of times when we've had a conversation around cancer, there has also been the issue of what is the government doing in terms of cancer. So do we have proper cancer treatment facilities in the country? Are they well equipped? Do we have enough cancer specialists in the country? Are they well resourced? So are they able then to deal with all the cases that we have coming from across the country? This is not a conversation that is easy to have, but it's a conversation that must be had. When we even talk about universal health coverage, and then what is going to happen when it comes to cancer, cancer care, cancer treatment, palliative, and all those, it becomes a very painful conversation.
Well, I mean, sure. And then the questions is that why then does it have to be so expensive? And if countries in other parts of the world can offer this treatment at a much cheaper rate, because that's the reason why people go out. People don't go out necessarily because they want to seek medical attention elsewhere. They're going out because it's actually cheaper than what you can get in your home country, right? And it's not about the quality of care. It's about the expense of the treatment, that by the time you're done, you're essentially bankrupt and you're trying to get your loved one well. So I'm really interested to understand once and for all what makes it so expensive in country to treat a disease like cancer, which is so rampant now. We're looking at the load of cancer in the country, not like it was 10 years ago.
Yep.
More and more people, either reported or true, to have had it over time, but it's more expensive to be treated at home than anywhere else.
But what I find also puzzling is it something that is easy to diagnose? Is it something that can be nipped in the bud? Can one get to understand that one has the possibility or has the genes of the way, if you have the capacity or you are prone, because like every other disease, I am certain that if it is discovered early, this discussion of expense and everything else will take a different turn.
Well, sure, but preventative care is the cheaper option. And we hear medical practitioners telling us this all the time, CT, that prevention is better than cure. It's a cheaper option. So come in regularly for your tests, because one of the things that can be found if you're coming in regularly for a check is cancer. That they can check it, being amongst men or women, they can check it and find it early if it's there. Or they can tell you certain things that you can do to kind of prevent this from happening. But with cancer, if you find it in the early stages, chances of you coming out of it
I have to ask,
are higher.
Even if they say you can come for the test, how accurate are these tests? How can you, for instance, indicate or tell that this person has, apart from just family history, that the likelihood of you getting cancer is actually high? Can this be tested? Secondly, you look at the numbers of people who are now exhibiting the existence of cancer in their bodies. This was once considered to be a disease of those who are 50 and above. No longer the case.
Yep.
Statistics tell us that 30% of those with cancer now are young people. Now, these are things, and then the question is on the increase. So why is it on the increase? Are we better able to diagnose it? All these things, the discussions around cancer, all of them require perhaps further discussion and explanation.
Indeed. The Kenya International Cancer Conference was held recently in Nairobi, which was bringing local and foreign experts in oncology together. They came together in a room, then they were having all these conversations on what can be done, what's the state of cancer and cancer treatment in the country, what also can be done. Let's bring in one of them who attended this, and this is Dr. Miriam Mutebi. Dr. Mutebi is a breast surgical oncologist and assistant professor in the Department of Surgery at the Aga Khan University Hospital. Dr. Mutebi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Asante sana for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Doc, we're going to talk about the cost of treatment of cancer. We're going to talk about the cost of managing and cancer and all. But let's first of all understand professionals like you, oncologists like you, came together recently in Nairobi to discuss the issue of cancer. What are the main issues that emerged out of this conference?
Thanks for the question. The first, the whole ethos or theme of the conference was around value-based care and trying to look at practical, pragmatic ways to deliver that to our patients. Now, if you look at value is usually a construct of the key things you've touched on. Think of it as a simple equation. It's basically quality divided by cost. Mm-hmm. And so in assessing value, in assessing quality, you have to, assessing value, you could either do it two ways. One, by increasing the quality, or by two, decreasing the cost. And so the whole thrust of the conference was looking at how can we introduce value into all the different spheres of cancer care. As you do appreciate, and you did touch on this earlier, there's several parameters to cancer care. There's different treatment arms. There's surgical oncologists like myself. There's medical oncologists who will usually give you chemotherapy. There's radiation oncologists who give radiotherapy services. There's diagnostics, because as you were asking, it is critical to be able to make the correct diagnosis, and not only to make the correct diagnosis, to have an accurate sense of what the stage of your cancer is, because that has implications in terms of overall survival and longevity. And then looking at also, you'd also mentioned palliative care, which is extremely important, I would say, because currently there have been lots of efforts, but just by our national data, we're saying 70% of our patients are still getting diagnosed with advanced cancers. So palliative care is a critical part of the care continuum. And sometimes I think we confuse palliative care with sort of end-of-life concerns, so nobody really has that conversation. Yeah. But so bringing all these different facets of care along the patient's cancer journey and saying, how can we add value? And so that was the basic premise around the conference, and looking at it through the lens of the different care aspects of provision, different aspects of care provision, even looking at, mental wellness, began because having a diagnosis of cancer is a tough diagnosis to take, and our patients will typically, for instance, go through the stages of grief, denial, anger, sometimes a bit of bargaining, and sort of work your way slowly to acceptance. Yeah. But just getting people to, psychological support is a critical aspect of any cancer journey. But sometimes I think one of the barriers is, again, the stigma around mental health. And so sometimes you'll talk to our patients and say, listen, we have these services to provide support, but you mentioned psychologist or psychiatrist, and everyone's like, no, I'm perfectly fine. And we're like, no, it's actually a strength to recognize why you're struggling. And and you wouldn't be human if you weren't sort of struggling to deal with it, because it is a tough diagnosis to take on. But if we're able to, and the services are here to support, I think part of the challenge has been, again, as you said, cost. But so trying to think creatively about how do we have a more multidisciplinary approach that's always having the patient at the center, and providing quality to them at a rate that's cost effective. Now, the argument behind value is because even as oncologists, you're having to sort of adjust your treatment plans, based on what the patient can afford. So even just from a regular clinic, the first patient might be different from the next one based on their ability to pay. But so the idea is, how do you ensure despite patients, so what we're saying is low resource that should not equal suboptimal care. So we're saying even within the confines of, limited resources, how do you provide value for these patients? So that was, I think, the main thrust of the meeting.
Okay, sure. So, Dr. Mute, there's certain things that you've talked about now. You're talking about the patient being at the center of all of this when you're talking about adding value and giving care. Now, just from cancer patients that I'm speaking as those that I've been able to speak to, and out of 12 people spoken to, 8, when they get a cancer diagnosis, 2 things ring clear to them. One is that they're going to die. The second is that they don't know how they're going to take care of this cost-wise. So those are the 2 things. And like you said, could touch heavily on the mental, and at the same time will touch even more heavily on their physical, right? So now they're thinking about what are they going to do in terms of providing and looking for the money to take care of this. And one of the big questions that we have to ask then is that with all the research that you've done, coming together with other medical practitioners, why is it so expensive for cancer patients in terms of care and treatment in Kenya?
I think the first thing we need to acknowledge is that cancer care is not cheap anywhere in the world, right? The cost, if you look at just on average cost of care, whether it's for surgery, whether it's for chemotherapy, whether it's for radiation services, they're not, unfortunately, cheap anywhere in the world. And I think we sort of get hobbled by 2 factors. One is, and this is just reflective of most of sub-Saharan Africa, if we look at the amount of the GDP that's actually devoted towards health, most developing countries have anywhere between above 11% of their GDP being focused to health. And if you look at most countries in low and middle incomes, then this is hovering around anywhere between 3 to 4%, sometimes even as low as 1%. And that, of course, has implications on patients' ability to access care. The other aspect is that, again, and this is part of the sort of push towards universal health coverage, is trying to improve equity and access to these services, because you do need to look at how is the average patient able to access, both diagnostic, both screening, diagnostic, and, therapeutic services. The other challenge has been that, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, we don't necessarily, and using sort of India as an example, we unfortunately are hobbled by, I would say, the pressures of economies, because we don't have our own manufacturing factories or whatever. Even something as basic as a simple medication has to be imported into the country. So this is an average. Patients in sub-Saharan Africa pay at least 2 to 3 times for the cost of a cancer drug than other comparable low and middle income countries. Now, why is that? I think part of the challenges, of course, have been sort of operating in silos, and this is where we sort of are trying to engage pharma more creatively, because what happens is, as a single country, pharma has argued that, you don't necessarily have that many numbers, so it doesn't make economic sense for us to maybe drop the price for you. But if we're able to sort of leverage our regional capacity, and that was actually part of the conversation we were having, because we're like, if we can negotiate, for instance, as East Africa, to improve the cost of the drugs that are coming in for our patients and negotiate that, then it's a subsidized, rate for the region, as opposed to markets looking at, we have such a small audience here that we don't necessarily having as much use for our drug. But we're like, as a region, if we're able to leverage and negotiate that. So those have been part of the initiatives that have been going on. There's several groups that are trying to negotiate that in collaboration with the different ministries of health in the region, and we're hoping that will definitely have some bargaining power. We have seen some wins already, There's the Clinton Health Access Initiative. There's, I think, the BioVentures for Global Health that have all tried to improve some of the costs or at least negotiate some of the costs by bringing together pharma and saying, hey, listen.
When you say
we're
improve the
negotiating-
costs, can you give us an example? Just some figures. This is what it costs and this is what it will now be lowered to so that one can actually understand what some of these gains are.
Yes. So I don't want to necessarily quote specific drugs.
No, just the costs,
but-
not necessarily the
Oh,
drugs.
yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So I would say, for instance, for a drug that cost about maybe $100, and through negotiating and leveraging like the different regions, are able to get it down to at least 40%, which is, one would say, still pretty high, but definitely, 60% lower is a huge win in terms of now the availability and the ability to give that to more of our patients. So
Who
those
is
are the kind of
negotiating this drop in prices? Is it governments? Is it medical institutions? Is it professionals like yourselves? Who is leading in this negotiation?
So far it's been a multidisciplinary approach because you can't negotiate, for instance, you can't negotiate on your own as a health professional, and you can't negotiate, for instance, as maybe a single unit. And so it has been that, what I was mentioning, the Clinton Health Access Initiative and things like the American Cancer Society working in collaboration with the Kenya Society for Hematology and Oncology, looking at how to engage pharma. And the idea behind that is getting pharma to the table, but also getting the respective ministries of health, because at the end of the day, unless you're having, government or policy buy-in, then it's just a little project that you're doing in your backyard, so to speak, because you want it to have at least a wider reach. And so it is a multidisciplinary approach involving both representatives from Ministry of Health, professionals who are able to sort of give their sense of how is this working on the ground in terms of availability to patients and how it works, looking at the pharmaceutical companies and also other civil society organizations. So it's basically a multi-pronged approach. It can't just work with a one person. So getting all these people together is the conversation, and that's the direction that we're moving in.
Dr. Ari,
to
are we
try and
winning
improve
this
access.
fight? Are we making headway? Because information, news that we read here about cancer is all very daunting. You hear of the increase, and just when you think there's an increase, there's more increase. Simple question: are we winning this fight?
I like to think so.
Okay, why
Of course, the
would you
numbers
like to think so?
Yeah, and I will just support that. For sure, the numbers are going up. One would say, if we're just looking at the Global Cancer Observatory data, what they call the GloboCan, and looking at our national data, because they sort of give you country-specific, we're saying that by 2018, we had about, 47,000 new cases. And as we said, the number of deaths were about 32,000, which is, one would say, almost about 60% of that. But in terms of the processes and steps that have been, sort of going on in the background to try and improve access to care, I think over the last 10 years, I think there have been deliberate efforts to try and improve the battle against cancer. It's not actually a war, it's a series of, it is a war, but I'm saying there's a series of continuing battles.
Yeah.
And the first thing has been we actually had a Cancer Act in 2017, which subsequently had a National Cancer Control Program, and the development of what we call the National Cancer Institute of Kenya. And all of these have been critical, not only in, I would say, defining, these are ministry-led initiatives where they're bringing together professionals and civil society to look at.
But how does this translate into people who may have cancer, people who are unable to afford cancer, people who are being told that in the areas they come from, there is an increase in cancer cases. How does all this translate into ensuring that these are people who can, A, benefit from this good news that you are proposing, and that their lives will be better as a result of these good things that you're saying have happened?
Yes, so how that translates is actually setting up the framework for treatment. Because unless you have the framework, then access to care becomes a philosophical issue. So as part of the National Cancer Control Program, the first mandate was determining what are the screening guidelines, and early detection strategies for the country. And it was critical to address that in terms of these are the priority cancers that we're seeing. And this was based on the top 5 cancers in our country, which is basically breast, cervical, esophageal, colorectal, and prostate, and looking at how do we improve screening and early detection for these patients. And so coming up with that framework to say, if I'm sitting in health center, what are the services I expect? If I'm sitting in a county hospital, what is the referral process? If I'm sitting in a tertiary referral hospital, what do I expect and what services? So even trying to define that, it might look trivial on the surface, but it is critical to actually knowing what am I supposed to be doing at which level, which hadn't been there at all, I would say about 10 years ago. And then looking at beyond screening and early detection, where it's criminal to just do screening and not have the follow-through, right? And so looking at what is it in terms of treatment I'm supposed to provide at each level of care within the care continuum in the country. So if I'm going to a district hospital, I'm going to a county hospital, what are the things I'm expecting to get? Who are the professionals? And then looking at then going beyond now to a notch higher to the policy level, what is the goodwill or what is the drive that we can do to actually ensure that costs of these are mitigated? Whether it's
in the bottom of all this, Dr. as you're saying, there are structures that have been put in place. At the bottom of all this, there's a patient this morning who is sleeping in some hostel where they have to pay some amount of money. They've been in pain throughout the night and they want to walk to a health facility to either go through radiology or chemo or to see a doctor. There is that, and that is a cost across board. We'll host you again, so we can now talk about the practicalities of all this. I mean, those thousands of patients who are today suffering, who are today wondering how they're going to be able to live through another day with this pain, those ones need to have today's solutions. Even as we talk about the general policy issues, and I completely appreciate the fact that we've made progress. We even have legislation, we have policy issues, we have professionals like yourselves coming together and helping the government to advance this conversation. But time for us to say goodbye to you, Dr. Ari. 28 minutes past 7. Dr. Miriam Mutebi is a breast surgical oncologist, and she's an assistant professor in the Department of Surgery at the Aga Khan University Hospital. Asante sana for speaking to us, Doc.
Thank you so much. And as I said, from the grassroots level, there have been attempts to improve access to the National Hospital Insurance Fund, which is improving the cost of treatment for both, surgeries, chemotherapy, and bearing some of the costs. But of course, the conversation that we're having is it's still not enough because they are providing some support, but we still need to make more efforts to ensure that our patients complete their entire cancer journey successfully. So I'm saying we're not there yet, but we're definitely making strides in the right direction. I think through motivating civil society and all members, we can push collectively towards improving access for our patients. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 28 minutes after 7. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home, on Spice FM, and online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. They are smart, They are funny and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those many people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing, Spice FM. Spice up your life. The weather with
Light rain
Spice
in Nairobi for
FM.
most parts at 17. We'll see highs with 25 and lows of 15 today. Partly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 20, highs of 24 and lows of 12. 13 will be the low in Nyeri, highs of 26 today. Partly cloudy currently at 17. It's partly cloudy in Eldoret at 20, highs of 24 and lows of 11. 20 degrees currently in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 20. 20 seems to be the magic number this morning. That's what it is in Kakamega, and partly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 15. Rain showers in Mombasa at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Partly cloudy conditions in Malindi at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 16. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 19, highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's light rain in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Johannesburg at 15 is clear with highs of 27 and lows of 13. And we're also looking at Lagos, where it's light rain at 26, highs of 33 and lows of 25. And then for now, in Kinshasa, light rain at 23 with highs of 30 and lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
Okay, so Githurai all the way towards car wash. An accident involving two saloon cars, unfortunately, and this is slowing down things quite considerably this morning on the Thika Superhighway. Getting down is going to be an issue. Utali to Pangani, the tunnel, it's jam-packed on the highway, very, very slow. Use the service lanes at this point. It'll get you further quicker. Mombasa Road. Okay. Those are being encouraged. You can also use the train because the traffic on Mombasa Road this morning is epic. It's so tight all the way from the SGR then towards General Motors. We also see inbound traffic, Samir then moving up. And we know that this is exacerbated by the construction taking place, but Mombasa Road is a no-go zone this morning. General Mavengi Road, Paka Road, looking at different parts of Westlands this morning, jam-packed. Use the Red Hill bypass this morning. Today, the bypass is your friend. Traffic coming out of Westlands, not looking very good either. All right, let's take a look again, half hour or so, and see what it looks like. Spice of MKE on Twitter or text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the situation. We continue conversations. Now let's look at the state of our economy and what's happening. We have seen the rate that the shilling has been going at. We have also seen what's happening in there, especially the stock markets, the stock exchange. Just recently, one of the companies that's listed in the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and this is Centum, announced a big drop in revenues, right? And in fact, in terms of earnings, huge losses. We have seen companies that have declared just during this COVID-19 pandemic, many companies, listed companies, filing profit warnings and saying we are going through a difficult and turbulent time. The questions that keep emerging during all this is, okay, so what's happening? Is this COVID that has made this to happen? or is COVID exacerbating some fundamentals that had gone wrong even before? Right? So is this a situation that is actually just appearing because of COVID, or is it a situation that was there and then now COVID has come and it has laid everything bare for all of us to see? This is what's happening in our economy. This is what's happening in terms of even the companies that are listed in the Securities Exchange, those that had bought shares and they were looking at this and seeing things looking on the up and up, and then those fundamentals look exposed.
It would be difficult to attribute all of this to COVID at the same time. It was, I mean, again, if we look at what the temperature was and look at how things were going in terms of an already depressed economy, whereby you're not able to keep up in terms of payments. This was happening before the entrance of COVID. Already we're looking at an economy that was close to its knees and things because by the time we started to have the conversation about raising the debt ceiling, by the time we had started to have the conversation about looking for other avenues to then be able to borrow, you looked at a budget deficit. Before COVID, these things were happening. If you want to look at the landscape of the country as a whole, businesses were already taking the plunge when it came. So it would be that now, with the little money that you had, COVID then just came in, and because of inactivity, then mopped up whatever there was still available. It made it worse. I don't think that it created the problems. I think that then you were able to see where a lot more of the problems then were laying, and then situations that were already bad then became worse.
Let's have a 15-minute conversation with somebody who's an analyst with focus on Kenyan and global macro trends and local equities. And this is Mir Thakar. Mir is also very, very active on social media, and his Twitter handle at Mir Thakar. He joins us on the line now. Good morning, Mir.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, and thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you, too.
So, 11 hours ago, Mir, you tweeted that today you will be releasing some research note on the state of the Kenyan stock market. So here you are. We got you before you released it. Give us some highlights of that.
Indeed.
So
this is
what exactly is happening?
Well, I would say, first of all, on a positive note, that the positivity rates of the tests we are doing has been declining for COVID-19 in the last 2 weeks. So it does look like we are at what we can call a preliminary peak, a second peak rather. So that could bring some optimism to the market. But I think this has been a very tough year. We closed 2019, the NSE 20 closed 2019 at 2654. And today we are at 1760. That's a 34% haircut within a few months. And I think it's remarkable how this can happen, because considering in 2015, the highs we reached and the lows we're at today, we are down 70%.
Is this purely as a result of COVID-19, and that's what we were asking ourselves before? Or were the fundamentals already showing something, and then now COVID-19 just exacerbated this?
And now, the problem is we have to look back for us to understand what COVID has actually accomplished to our detriment, to our stock market. So in 2015, the government introduced a capital gains tax on profits from sales of securities. And this was at 5% of the gains. A proportion of this was withheld by the stockbrokers, and this actually was not very well communicated to the market participants. So we saw some panic selling. In fact, 2015 was a very high level. We had the index at close to 6,000. The NSE 20, which is a benchmark of 20 stocks with good sectoral representation. So we saw this cascade begin from 2015. And, a few months later, they decided, okay, let's scrap this tax because we are having a sudden demarcation from what was once quite roseate. But then they went ahead and brought in an interest rate cap in 2016. So this resulted in a collapse of the banking stocks. We saw counters like KCB and Equity drop to the 20s. And this was literally unprecedented. So that also resulted in private sector credit growth getting floored. It hit 3% and below for a couple of months. In fact, now it's at 7%, but those levels were down from double-digit percentage growth. So this was a remarkable drop, and it reverberated throughout the entire stock market. And the market has not really recovered from that, even though they scrapped it in quarter 3 or quarter 4 of 2019. The rally that had begun from scrapping of this interest rate cap was cut short by COVID-19 landing on our shores in March 2020.
Okay, so then with what you're saying, Mir, then COVID cannot take responsibility for what we are currently seeing. COVID cannot take the sole responsibility for what we are seeing now in terms of a depressed economy and how several companies are suffering. Can it take the full responsibility?
Well, I would say that it cannot, because, between 2013 and September 2020, our total debt has grown from 1.7 trillion to 7.2 trillion and growing. In fact, now the figure is probably closer to 7.5 trillion and expected to uptick by another trillion within the next few months. Debt service to exports is up from 3.6% in 2011 to 30% in 2019. And this is, really adding up to our problems on the basis of the policies as well, because policies like the interest rate cap, excessive infrastructure spending based on debt-infused money is taking away the reins from the private sector.
Let me ask this question as a layman. If I look and hear and read about the stock exchange, I believe it's an investment platform where people try to see how best they can put their money so that they can get favorable returns. What then does one look for if one is to consider the stock exchange as it currently is as a safe place to actually invest?
You see, there are two types of strategies. One size does not fit all. But one of the strategies is looking at strong companies on the basis that strength begets strength. And the second basis is to look at really battered companies, like Kenya Power, Kengen. Kengen, of course, is fundamentally sound, but the share price has suffered quite a bit, down from 11.5 at IPO in 2007-06, and now it's at 4.5. So these companies have been battered. So if you were to pick, a company like Kenya Power, for example, its market cap of 2.7 trillion is 26% of its financial year 19 operating profit.
I mean, as you're pointing at Kenya Power, so now again, so would you say, for example, a company like Kenya Power would be a good company to invest in?
Well, you see, the problem is that finance costs are now taking up 98% of the profit, operating profit, and that was in financial year 19. So this is up from about 28% in financial year 13. So this type of debt, and Kenya Power is a good representation of the country as a whole. So this type of debt, again, is a deterrent. But considering that some capital could be infused or some form of debt relief is given, then I think there is a lot of potential in that counter.
So for those who have a little extra coin at this point, and if we're looking at a lot of companies who seem to be selling at low, because this is what essentially we do see now, would you advise that this would be the time for you to invest and hopefully things would grow later? Is this the time to spend?
I would say absolutely. If you look at a company like Equity Bank, Equity Bank's quarter 3 2020 provisions increased 8 times to 14.8 billion from 1.9 billion in quarter 3 2019. So this is a remarkable uptick in the provisions for bad loans. But say those provisions only doubled rather than increasing 8 times, then the Tier 1 bank would have actually reported a 24% surge in profit after tax for quarter 3 2020. And these are very, very strong companies with return on equity exceeding 20%. Return on equity is the profit generated on its capital.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very important metric for me personally.
So what you are saying is this, that despite the problems that we keep reading about, that the business platform that represents shares in this country is still sound. We are not under any threat of it collapsing soon.
Well, I would say no. Kenya is a very, very resilient economy. And in fact, equity turnover at the Nairobi Securities Exchange is up 11.4% in the 9 months to September 2020. It's hit 121.16 billion. And again, we are seeing the foreign activity, foreign sales to purchase ratio is now down to 1.19 from 1.50 in quarter 2 2020 and 1.53 in quarter 1 2020, from a low of just about 1.03 in quarter 3 2019. So gradually we are seeing the intensity of the foreign sales decrease, and foreign investors coming back will also be influenced by the 9% depreciation of the Kenya shilling. They would see they're getting a double value proposition.
So let's talk about now the Kenya shilling then, and the kind of hit it's taking. What would you attribute this to?
Well, there are several theories. Many people say that it's based on speculative demand, but there's also the fundamental of high debt. There's a lot of money needed to repay external loans, which could also influence the Treasury's decision to take the G20 debt relief initiative, which should save over 70 billion in external loan payments. So I think apart from that, there is also a decrease in tourism receipts. The total tourism GDP in 2019 was about 160 billion. So a lot of this would have been also foreign receipts. And this has also affected the balance of payments, together with perhaps a bit lower FDI and, a decline in some of the exports during lockdown periods that can heighten speculative activity.
If you look at the shilling dollar pair and how the shilling has then been faring, do you think the central bank ought to take some action to save the shilling, or should it just allow the market forces to continue?
Okay, I don't think they have that much firepower to intervene in what can be seen as a healthy move down to boost the competitiveness of local manufactured products. But they do have about 4.9 months import cover, and this is against the statutory minimum of 4 months. So should they see a need to do so, then they can perhaps, although slightly constrained, but I don't think it's necessary at this point because many can see that the shilling move is healthy in the circumstances.
But is it healthy for people who want to import? Because now, with what
Yes.
the yo-yo that the dollar is performing, it does it not imply that if we import, we'll be paying more for our imports?
Indeed. So, this can also have a negative impact on manufacturers because some of the raw materials have to be imported, like steel billets, clinker for cement factories, and so on and so forth. But overall, I think this could help some of the agricultural exports, even, manufactured exports. We do have some manufactured exports as well in the country, even though manufacturing to GDP is now down to 7% from double digits before the Jubilee government took over. But I think in the circumstances, there's not much we can do, and we should wait it out. There will be a time when, things return to normal.
Sure.
Considering,
although
yeah.
that time is you're not that time is unpredictable in terms of what you're able to see coming forward. So what we then have, but what we then have in the interim is that for those who'd be in any kind of business and having to purchase outside of the country, obviously you're doing this in foreign currency. So you're having to spend more money, right? So you're in a position for a prolonged period of time whereby you're making losses, as it were. But essentially, we are saying that there's no one entity, at least within the borders financially for Kenya, that can do anything about it. So even if things do get better, at the time that they get better, a lot of these businesses are still going to be in recovery mode for a very long period of time. Wouldn't that be the case?
Yes, we have a problem also with demand, you see. Demand is still low. We are seeing an employment rate up to over 10% now, and that's probably an understatement because the informal economy also has elements of, inactivity for the workers. So we have a problem with demand. In the beginning, it was a supply problem when China shut down. Now we have a demand problem. How can we get people to spend more? That's the issue.
When they essentially don't have it. Because that's what we're saying. We want people to spend more. You really do, so that you can keep the economy afloat. But people don't have it to spend.
Yeah, and money is just leaving the country, to pay foreign loans rather than, state factories exporting goods and services based on foreign loans they took. So, there is an argument against taking foreign loans for excessive infrastructure development. It may not pay off in the time that we would have liked it to. And the return on investment would also be skewed by what many allege as high costs, unprecedented high costs, and inordinate high costs of these infrastructure projects.
Okay, Mir, now I want you to just look at your crystal ball as we conclude this conversation. Look in the next 12 months from your crystal ball. What do you see happening in the stock markets domestically? What do you see happening in the strength of our shilling?
Well, I see that most likely we are going to have a rally next year because of the vaccine optimism. The downside risk is mass vaccine failure and immunization failures. So this is a huge downside risk. For the Kenya shilling, I think once we have the pandemic under control, the Kenya shilling should start to normalize again to its previous value, or perhaps slightly higher than what it was, perhaps slightly lower, in fact, than what it was.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Mir Thakkar. Mir is an analyst of the markets, both locally and globally, and looks at trends of global trends and local equities. Asante sana for joining us, and asante sana for sharing your insights this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Time for us to take a break on KTN Home, 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. We'll be back shortly. In the next hour, we have a conversation with taxi drivers in the country. And also we have a conversation with the people who are steering the signature collection exercise for the BBI referendum push. Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
All right. He, just like very many analysts, is looking at it from, optimism on one side and then saying, okay, things are how they are right now, but I see there's going to be a rally next year. There's going to be this rising optimism because of the vaccine. So the issues that have been there because of COVID-19 are likely to then be shored up by that. And then looking at the shilling as well and saying, all right, it's possible for it to stabilize. What is happening now is that, though, just like Mir mentioned, is we're paying loans and therefore it's an expensive loan, and we're also a net importer. Kenya is a net importer. Everybody who's importing, be it Tumba traders, be it people who are importing wares to sell in very many retail outlets across the country, all those are having to buy a dollar at a very expensive rate. Currently it has a hit, and maybe things are going to look better.
Oh, sure. I think of it from, even as rudimentary as it sounds, look at it from where you made a budget and you planned for your business as you went into this 2-3 years ago. And by this time where you assumed that there were certain profits that you were going to be making. And then you find that the very currency that you deal with, then has been affected by several market forces, several losses in terms of the economy. You take 3 steps back, essentially. You take 3 years back in what you would have been trying to achieve. That you're not going to be able to continue buying raw materials, for example, at the cost at which you budgeted for. It's a big dent in how businesses then would be able to keep afloat. Huge dent. And unprecedented. That you when budgets like that are made, you take into consideration a certain percentage in terms of loss. But this one and what it has brought about is not something that anybody would have been able to predict.
No, they wouldn't have. And even as we think of the shilling losing against major currencies, the shilling has lost ground before and it has also gained it. Now, worst case scenario is a situation where we're talking about 116.
Yeah, 116.
Yes. Worst case scenario is if it hits 200. Then you're now talking about something serious, because what it means is the debts that you actually had, that you borrowed in terms of dollars, whatever interest you are supposed to pay will suddenly double. So it's like you'll never finish paying this loan. Now, the question that I'd like to know is, surely the central bank isn't exactly unable to do something. It's one of the functions of the central bank is to help with regulating such things. Yes.
I'm hard pressed to see that as an entity they would not be able to step in. And
one of the rules they have is precisely that.
Yeah.
Actually, the CBK governor he has said before, we are observing, and we are currently what we are seeing. There's no need for us to intervene as yet.
At this time.
Yes.
No need for us to intervene as yet, but we are very much on top of things. And I think, that is something, just like CT you've said, we have seen it hit certain levels before we've seen it stabilize afterwards. Yeah. So, and there's what it means for the central bank to intervene in such a case.
Yes, it does.
It sends other signals, other ripple effects that maybe that's what the CBK dons are looking and saying, no. It's not yet a time for us to do anything here.
Was this not part of the fear in taking some of the loans that we have now succumbed to taking? That when you apply for these loans, you will be sending certain financial messages to people who you do business with around the world that you are in a certain financial position, which is not necessarily a good one.
You want to send
so movement begins.
Yeah.
But there are people who look at the stock exchange and think it's not very different from gambling.
Isn't it?
We should have a conversation with those ones very soon. Keep it right here for more conversations. In the next hour, we have 2 conversations. One, we want to talk about the state of taxi drivers in the country. We have seen stories with regards to, especially those that are using the taxi hailing apps, complaints about how much they are earning vis-a-vis what they were earning before. So we want to talk to two drivers who want to share their story, and then we'll talk about the BBI and the BBI conversation. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. It's 8 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice.
102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu. Traffic.
Very slowly around Nakuru this morning, trying to get into the CBD. Yes, slow down some. Right around the underpass at Pangani, and then as you join, going towards the overpass at the Globe Cinema, that speeds up a little bit, but then slows down yet again. Forest Road this morning is also flowing very well. Coming out of Westlands, where we saw some issues before, that's not so bad at the moment. All right, let's look at Joko Road, trying to get into the CBD. Also looking very good right now. Langata Road, not as bad as yesterday, so it's looking good coming out of Langata Road as you enter into the CBD. Bagathi Way moving slowly but moving well. Part of that road locked off for construction. And on Mombasa Road, sorry guys, but it's moving very slow in and outbound at this hour. It's likely to get better in about an hour or so, but if you're stuck in that, it's going to be for some time coming. Okay, Wednesday morning, let's see what it looks like in other parts of the country when we come back in about half an hour. But for now, sit it out, you'll be fine. Spice FM KE on Twitter, that's how you can reach us, or text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
2.5 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We thank you very much for sticking with us. This is the third hour of our show. We begin the show every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We are on KTN Home for 2 hours every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock. So welcome and thank you very much for watching us on KTN Home. As we begin the hour, what we always do is we begin with today's proverb by C.T. Muga. C.T. Muga, what is today's proverb?
Indeed, we do begin by proverb. Common sense is a genius dressed in working clothes.
Common sense is a genius dressed in working clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sawa. If that's what you say. It's okay.
That is what has been said. So
you'll tell us who that is who says this. Anyway, so let's have a conversation about, as we continue having conversations about business, there's a business of taxi drivers. So we have seen the advancement of technology, and technology now helping us even to hail a taxi from wherever you are, and the taxi comes to you, and then also you know how much you're going to pay well in advance, and you can see how much it's going to charge you. This is compared to what we had before, where taxi drivers, everybody had a cab guy, or if you didn't have a cab guy, then you just know where the cabs would be parked, and you go there and you find the guys and telling you, yes sir, where do you want to go? And you tell them where you'd like to go, and you start negotiating the price at that point. And there was basically, and apart from those that are clear that this is a proper taxi company and this is how much they charge per kilometer, others would be just looking at you and thinking, "Totoa 300. 300. Then you have a negotiation with them. Nowadays, it's you get into the app, you hail your cab, It shows you where the cab is. It shows you how long it'll take you for the cab to arrive. The cab arrives, driver calls you, you go, you get into the cab, and then you go home to whatever destination you're going. And at the end of the trip, you pay. And you're done with that. We have seen that. So there are very many hailing apps in the country, and there are very many of those organizations operating in the country. Uber is one of them. We have others, the Bolt, and the many others. A story appeared on CBC News the other day. It was talking about the plight of especially Uber drivers in the country, and looking at what it is that they've gone through, how their business model is in terms of the global organization, and how the business model is in terms of the person who is buying a car and putting their car into the service, and then using the app that is run and managed by Uber or the others. The drivers have basically been complaining. Agreements with third parties are discussed without, involvement of the drivers. This particular app decides, okay, so because there's a new, bigger app that has come into the market, we are going to go into price wars with that other app. And so they reduce the rates on their app. When the rate is reduced, the commission that goes to the driver is not negotiated. So, for instance, in the case of some of these apps like Uber, the drivers say that the commission is 25%. So 25% out of every trip goes to the company, and then the rest is left for you to operate. This is your license, this is your insurance, this is your fuel, this is your service, this is your labor, this is everything. This is your income, this is your profit. What is left with you? But what is 75%? 75% of how much? Many Uber drivers have been complaining lately that what they were making a couple of years back compared to what they're making now is a huge difference. You've heard the same from drivers whenever you use an Uber.
Well, sure, everybody's complaining about this, that, in as much as the encouragement goes to having more and more people hail these cabs, that they themselves as the drivers are the ones who are taking or receiving the short end of the stick. And in terms of what they're making, it becomes then peanuts in what they're able to take home. But because they don't have a choice, they stick with the grind. And many things have been shot out in the air, that it is not fair, that their needs and their wants need to be met in terms of drivers, because essentially they're, no pun intended, they're the ones who are driving this vehicle. Without them, basically, the app would not exist. So yeah, the complaint is there. It's heavy, and a lot of people really complaining about it. Like you said, your cab guy is no longer there, right? Where you had an opportunity to negotiate, you couldn't. So now with these, it's you take what you get from the platform. You don't take it, you're out of a job. So what do? You stick with the poor conditions, or you stay at home with nothing.
Yeah, there are those that have left the business. For example, this story is quoting a driver called Peter Mwinga, who quit driving for Uber last year and said he earns more selling fruit and vegetables out of the back of his Toyota Fielder, which he still has not paid off after 3 years as a driver. And he was standing next to his parked vehicle on the road. He's saying he wouldn't advise anyone to get into this kind of business. Anyway, let's talk to people who are in this kind of business and who've been in the business for a while. We are joined by two drivers who are somewhere on the road. We're going to call out, one of them is Edward. Edward, good morning. And this is Edwin. Edwin, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
And thank you very much for speaking to us. And the other driver, we're going to call him John. John, good morning.
Good morning.
I think he's on the road somewhere. Our producer, John, will deal with him. So I just talk to him so he can maybe park on the road. So Edwin, asante sana for speaking to us and wanting to share your story. How long have you been a taxi driver?
I've been an Uber driver for like 4 years now. Almost now. This is the fifth year now. Going to the fifth year.
This is your fifth year in the business?
Yes.
Did you get into the business when the platforms were launched, or did you get into the business before the old taxi business?
I was I was doing part-time, still working, but still have some few taxis. I had a contract with the company. Then Uber was launched. And we joined immediately because I was seeing I was losing the contract with the other company because they wanted to use the Uber platform.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were employed by the other company?
Yes.
And when you got into the now taxi company on your own, is it did you buy the vehicle or did you hire somebody's car?
I had 3 cars, and I bought 2 cars. Yes.
And what was the business like at that time?
At that time when there was no Uber,
Yes.
and the business was very good. Actually, I had a contract with a company in Westlands. To be specific, with Talo. And the returns were very good. Actually, I used to do like $5,000 every month, picking their staff from the airport to Wilson to Westlands where they were staying. And they, like, for example, they used to pay like $50 per trip, and sometimes on the lower side $30.
All right.
Yes, and I was doing almost like 100 staff per month. Yes.
So what made you get onto the apps? Why did you have
The
to?
app?
Yes. Because I mean, you look at what you were doing really well, and then there was the entrance of this company into these companies into Kenya. Then what made you make the jump?
What happened? I was seeing that I'm losing. Actually, most of the clients, for example, I'm late. They prefer Uber.
Okay.
Yes.
So in the event you're late, then the person, your charge basically just decides, let me hail an app and they a taxi, and they move.
Yeah, and they move, and I lose that opportunity. You see, even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes late, I've lost a client.
Okay. How was it for you when then you transitioned into the app yourself? How was business then?
At first, it was doing very well, but not compared to the contract that I had with the company. But it was doing fairly well.
Okay.
We used to have like 1 car will make a profit of around 30,000 per week.
And this is profit. This is gross profit.
Profit. Yes, this is actually net profit.
Okay.
Yes. We make 30,000 per week. If you multiply by 5, that's 150,000.
This is 4-5 years ago.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, after I've paid my everything, I'm left, let's say, per month, let's say, give it like around 130, 140 after I've done everything. Then slowly, that was Uber X. Remember the Uber X were the 1500cc cars and the 1800cc cars.
Yeah.
They introduced another smaller car, the Uber Chap Chap. They introduced the smaller car. Remember, they've seen the small car, the Suzuki, the 800cc.
Yeah.
They were offering at the rates were a bit cheaper. So clients started moving from Uber X to Uber Chap Chap. Then the Uber drivers were given incentive to go to CMC, buy a car, on loan. Then you pay slowly. Then they were told for every 10 hours that you stay online, you're given 2,500 extra. That was like a promotion to make sure that you're on every now and then, yeah?
Okay.
Plus monthly, you pay
2,500 per day or per month?
Per day.
Every 10
per
hours.
Day. Yes, every 10 hours you're on.
Okay.
You're given 2,500. Plus the trip that you've done again. Now you see, by the end of the day, you have like 10,000 shillings.
Was it cutting across all the drivers for all the types, or was it only for this new?
Only Chap Chap only, the new model, the small car.
Okay.
So if you notice, all the clients from Uber X moved to Chap Chap because it was a bit cheaper. So and then the car was 1.2 million on loan, yeah. So they started paying things. Then again, they offered, they accepted smaller cars again not from CMC again. So the guys started bringing the cars, and within a short time, the Uber X there was no business with Uber X.
What do you mean
So
there's
they
no
stopped.
business?
Because most clients were shifting from Chap Chap, from X to Chap Chap, was a bit cheaper.
So you didn't need so many bigger cars then? Okay.
Yes. So within a short time, they removed the Uber X on the platform.
Okay.
And then you see, now you have a loan, you have cars on platform, they no longer have business.
So for the drivers that had their vehicles, the bigger cars, the 1800 cc's and all, what then would happen to you? Are you then forced to get a smaller car, or is your car then able to also? Were you able to register your vehicle for the Chap Chap service?
No, you're not allowed. You're not allowed. So you're either forced now to register like the little cab, or now Bolt.
Okay. But Edwin,
Okay, now
Uber X has been there. I mean, I'm just looking at the app right now, and I can still find it.
I tell you, it's there, but it doesn't have business.
Doesn't have
can say
business
that-
that people don't choose it. The app doesn't give you business, or is that people have moved from using the services of Uber X to the smaller chap chap?
Exactly. People have moved from X to Chap Chap. 100% of people have moved actually to X, to Chap Chap rather. Yes.
So, what prevents the person who had this Uber X from getting into the chap chap business?
The engine size. The engine size for Chap Chap, it's
No, what I mean is, if I own a big engine vehicle, and
Yes.
I can see that there's money in the smaller engine vehicle, the smaller engine capacity vehicles,
Yes.
what stops me from getting into that other business?
You have a loan, right? You're tied. You cannot say, for example, you bought an X with a loan.
All right.
So you cannot. So you have to sell the car that you have so that you move to there. You look for another small car.
So the
buy-
transition, the difficulties of the transition,
Yes.
because of now
Exactly.
changing in the
Exactly.
business models. You'd already invested on one,
Yes.
then you're basically left with an investment that you cannot convert into business.
And that conversion, let's say it was a very short time, yeah? We're talking of about 1.5 years. We just paid loan for one and a half years, then they change. Then now they want small cars.
So we've been seeing complaints, and I mean, in terms of the hailing apps, we've seen demonstrations very many times by Uber drivers. You've been in the business for 4 years, so I'm sure you know the genesis of all this. What is it that the drivers keep complaining about? What are the main grievances that you have?
Number one, actually, is the rates. Last year, okay, let's say, for example, from Westlands to town, it used to be around, let's say, at most 280 shillings. Currently, it's 150 shillings.
Okay.
150 shillings from Westlands to town may take you, let's say, at most, let's say, 30 minutes because of traffic within the university way, right?
Okay.
Uber wants 25% commission from that 150 shillings. A normal car will spend, let's say, 1 liter, let's say, from Westlands to town, yeah?
Yep.
So by the time you're dropping the client, you spend almost a liter because of traffic and everything, yeah?
Yep.
Uber wants 25% from it.
Yep.
From 150, you're left with 100, I think 100 and something. You go fuel the car. Then immediately you drop, you drive out of Westlands. You're out of town because of the city council. So you drive back to Westlands. So you've done zero work. A liter for going and a liter for coming back.
However, it's possible for you to get another client while you are in the CBD.
Yes. But it's still tricky because, let's say, for example, like being within the town, it's great because we have kanjos who don't wear uniforms. Yeah? So by the time you're picking a client, somebody comes and grabs the key.
Okay.
Now, when all these things were taking place, let me ask the question. The rates that you probably had with the Uber X, is there a platform in which the drivers can actually have a conversation with the management of this particular platform or process or service so that you can actually air your grievances?
No. You can imagine on our app, we have a place where you can chat with somebody on their side, yeah? On the customer side. But there's no telephone number. You cannot call, you cannot do, there are no reply. These days, they don't even reply.
But we have seen attempts by the drivers to organize themselves, maybe come together as a group, and then you want to approach the management as a group. This has happened before, hasn't it?
Yes, it has happened before. We've chosen leaders. They go meet Uber. We negotiate. Then later after that, they disappear.
Who disappears?
Our leaders that we've chosen to go to represent us at Uber offices and online companies here.
And
So
by disappear, what do you mean? They get out of business? They go missing?
They get out of business. Yeah, they go do other things. Now they say that, like for example, there's a guy who was our leader. Right now he's standing for MCA in Kasarani. Not Kasarani, Zimmerman. He no longer follows up. We tried even going to Sakaja. Sakaja said he'll try follow up. He went quiet. You try raise something online, they remove you from the system to the platform. That's true. You see.
Yeah. So let's also bring in the other driver who was to speak to us this morning. Moses is on the line. Moses, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Moses. We've been hearing the story from Edwin on what has been happening, the plight of Uber drivers and those that have invested in this business. Tell us your own experience.
Okay. Since this platform came in, things have not been popping well on our side. Mostly while it gets to us driver's side. Because you're the one fueling the car and you're the one doing the service and everything. Well, by now, if the vehicle has an issue, you're the one to service it. Whereby you have to still commit the payment of the 25%. But with the rates are still low. Whereby it happens this way. For example, the previous rate that we've been having for the fuel, we just jumped out from 115, now we're at 105. Well, their rates, they still don't keep on like going low and low and low.
Okay.
Instead of increasing, they keep on decreasing.
Okay.
Whereby they don't consider if the fuel prices hikes or if the price goes down.
Okay. What would make sense? And this is a question for both of you. What would make sense? Because now you're looking at, they take away the 25%. There are basics that you have to use to operate, fuel, maintenance, etc., right? What would make sense for them to say, okay, this is what we're going to take by virtue of the fact that you're on the platform, and then we leave the rest to you, while they're also thinking about, driving the numbers for clients who come to travel in your vehicles. What kind of numbers would make sense that you would say now we are satisfied?
This is what happened, my sister. The previous time while Uber started, we didn't have any discomfort. Like for the past, behind the 2 years before. This is what happened. The price on accurate figure, whereby it was a bit considerate. I can recall very well at that certain time, the fuel had gone towards 129.9. That's almost 130 shillings. We didn't have a trip, like a short trip, whereby you can get 90 shillings pay. Even like the border, it cannot suit that. It's not good. Because at that certain time, the least amount we used to get paid, it was 300 bob for the shortest trip.
So there was
and we had more clients. The demand was very high, even more than now. Now we are paying less, and we are still experiencing more troubles.
But there was some money that the platform was taking from you at that time, isn't it? Because how would they be able to make money otherwise? What in terms of a percentage were they taking? Was it still the same 25%?
Yeah, it was still the 25%.
So then we are saying the problem now essentially is that they have reduced the price that clients would have to pay, thereby putting less money in your pocket as a driver.
Yeah, that's true. This is what is happening. Like, while you get into this business, you'll come to realize it's as if you've been tied upside down, whereby one leg is being tied with fuel gauge and another one is being tied with Uber percentage. Whereby now you're just hanging.
Can I ask this question? Before you started working with Uber, had you been in the taxi business before?
Me? Yeah,
Yes.
I was.
And how do you compare the two?
Okay. This is what happened. Like, for the two, it has not been... Okay, comparing to the clients, the previous one, you are giving the rates. You are not giving the rates. You try to discuss with the client, then he gives you a certain price, then you come up with something. While Uber came in, they started with bigger, like any vehicle you had, you can just intervene and come with it to the platform. Then later on, they came on and like reducing the CCs. They need a smaller CC, and of which they don't give you any like forward talking whereby they tell you like, what will be changing. No, this is what they do because they know the payment is that keeps you moving. They just deduct and reduce and give bonuses.
But I guess the question the question that everybody who listens would ask themselves is, you still are able to get into a business, the taxi business, without using the app. Why don't you do that? I mean, is there any advantage that you can see this is an overarching advantage of using the app? And if I'm not using the app, then I'll not be able to get this. Or is it possible
All right.
for you to just revert to what you were doing before, decide I'm going to switch off the app, I am going to operate as a Kawaida taxi driver?
So that way, if we go to us that way, I can ask us just a simple question. You remember, like the previous time, they went to Germany trying to place their platform and it did not work because those guys there, they refused. Which is happening here. They have taken away the marketing strategy, whereby they have taken cover of everything. For now, trying to do the normal business, who will go to ads, like going to ads paying you 1,000 to the JKI, while someone else is requesting you to pay him 2,000 to the JKI? Definitely, someone will go towards the cheaper side. Of which now they make it more cheaper because they are the one gaining, and like the main people who are in this business who are earning more is the petrol station and the Uber itself.
So basically, technology has forced us, the consumers, or has made it easier for us, the consumers, to move. So we have moved. You have to stay where we are.
If it's about movement, I think it is much being considerate. You're not supposed to enjoy while you're being malicious to others. Am I wrong?
No, well, you're not wrong, but if you're in business and the taxi business is just a business, then I would assume that you, as a person in that business, would look after your own interest in the same way the Uber people are looking after their interest. But if things are as bad as we've been hearing, why is it then that we haven't had all the people who are working with Uber simply stop working with Uber and go into something better?
All right. You have said correctly. You know, like our hands are tied. We don't own the platform. The reason why Germany, they are able like to intervene, it's because the country itself, it listens to the citizens. Whereby for us, you're not much superior to give orders. I think the government can assist us in that. If they say like you're paying our people low, or this business is not popping well, I think we'll have a say. But how many times have you heard of our striking, sir?
Many.
We have striked more than 16 times.
Many, yes, indeed.
What is happening?
So you
what
strike,
they do,
you don't
the
get much
person
out
who
of it.
gets in charge there is being told like to go and take care of the people. Then he goes there, they bribe him, and he kicks off.
And it's done.
That's the thing.
All right. I think we want to thank you very much, Moses and Edwin, for joining us today and for sharing your story and the plight. And you've mentioned a number of things. You've also tried using elected leaders to address this issue, especially on the policy and legislative front. You have reached out to members of parliament, you've reached out to the senators, and you're waiting to see what they can do. We will continue following up on this story.
We'll need their hand in this, please.
We'll continue following up on this story. We'll talk to the legislators. We'll also talk to the platform managers themselves to hear the side of the story, to understand the model of business. Many things have been said, especially on the story that was published by NBC on the model of business, not just in Kenya, but globally. They look at having very many cars on the road, because then having very many cars ensures that anybody who hails an Uber, as a customer, I don't want to hail an Uber and wait for 15 minutes or 25 minutes. I want it to be right there. So that's their model. And then that model also has an impact on what you as a driver are doing in terms of being able to get business. But thank you very much for sharing your story. We will continue following up on this, and we'll reach out to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've appreciated it.
Asante sana. Time for us to take a break. 28 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nyeri. Chilled Spice.
All right, so the sun is peeking out through those clouds this morning in Nairobi. We're looking at 18 degrees, going to highs of 25 and lows of 15. It's partly sunny in Nakuru at 20 with highs of 24 and lows of 12. Partly sunny conditions in Nyeri, highs of 26 and lows of 13. Eldoret is partly sunny at 25, at 20 as well, going to highs of 24 and lows of 11. We have partly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 20, going to highs of 28 and lows of 20. Kakamega is partly sunny as well. We'll see 28 as the high and lows of 15. Rain showers in Mombasa at 26 still continue, highs of 30 and lows of 26. And Malindi at 20. 18. Going to see highs today of 27 and lows of 16. Kinshasa, for now, is 19 and partly sunny. Highs of 27 and lows of 17.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, so guys, we're not having too crazy of a morning in terms of traffic. We know that it's moving slowly on thicker roads still, even at this point. In and outbound also on Mombasa Road, moving slowly. Let's take a look outside of the city of Nairobi. Getting into Nakuru town this morning, not too bad. And within the city, as we then go out, moving west, not an issue today. Traffic is flowing very smoothly. As it is in Mombasa, try and cross the Likoni Channel, ferries up, and that is moving very well also. All right, back into Nairobi. Bagathi Way, causing a problem for some folks this morning, moving very slowly as you try to then get to the Timor roundabout or in the other direction to the City Mortuary roundabout. It's moving slowly. You get into Valley Road, though, thereafter. That will open up in not too long from now. Let us know if you get stuck anywhere. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room broadcasting on Spice FM. We are on KTN Home for the next 30 minutes. We are also online every morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We have conversations that touch on all manner of things, from development, from politics to policy to, the state of the economy in the country, in the region, and in the world. This and every morning, we have in the room C.T. Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif. We've had a BBI conversation for a while now, and every day this week we've had a BBI conversation. We started with the BBI conversation with the civil society activists who were raising issues with the BBI process itself and the Constitution Amendment Bill. Well, yesterday we spoke with Governor Kivuta Kibwana, the governor of Makueni County. He's a constitutional lawyer, a legal scholar. He has been involved in the journey to constitution making previously. He was even a part of this BBI conversation earlier this year. He has moved to the Supreme Court of Kenya seeking interpretation of the court on how the process should be conducted. First of all, he feels that this is a government process and then it's being converted to become a popular initiative. And the government is using state resources and state machinery in a popular initiative route, and that he feels is wrong. And he wants the Supreme Court judges to interpret and give opinion on this. On the other issue, that he also says, you have one bill that has 78 amendments, different amendments to the Constitution of Kenya. This looks like it's a fundamental change to the structure of the Constitution itself. So should we be going to a referendum with just one yes or no to all these changes, or should we be seeking Kenyans to approve or reject change, proposed change per change? We also know that the steering committee that is leading the push towards a referendum and towards now the Constitution Amendment is already saying that they have over 2 million signatures so far. Their target is 4 million. The constitutional requirement is just about 1 million signatures. Go to the IEBC, let the signatures be verified. What we are seeing is that now there are very many leaders from various fronts who are leading this push across the country. We have seen governors across the country every day. There's a photo of governors who are now leading the signature collection drive in their counties, in their localities. So what's happening in all this is that the train, like CT said, is well on its way to Mombasa. Shortly, it'll be at the terminus. Okay. The lady who's announcing in the train has already said we've passed the final station. We're heading towards the terminus. So, come on. be prepared. Right.
It's a done deal. It's basically what we're looking at here, but still very many questions being asked, still many concerns being raised. And I think, look, if we're going to continue throwing the word democracy at this thing, then I think it's vital for those questions to be asked, those opinions to be aired, those demands to be made, especially if you're still talking about being in a democratic process. And for those questions to come out, then I think it's absolutely necessary, regardless of whether the train has reached where it's going or not. The train that has gone in one direction can very easily come back in the other.
In fact, one often wonders, do trains have a reverse gear?
This is the question. They do. They can come back.
Yes, and at the same speed as they went forward.
Even faster.
Yes, so I think with that in mind, even as we know there's a destination that is being moved towards, there's a consideration that perhaps not only should the reverse gear be engaged, but also this appears to have been an express train. Perhaps it's a sort of train that perhaps need to be given, should we say, newer and better journey instructions. Stop at least 3 stages before you actually get to your destination. But then the question is, even with these possibilities, as a discussion point, is it possible?
Is it possible to get there? Let's bring in somebody from the National Secretariat of the Building Bridges Initiative, the people who are now spearheading the signature collection drive, the ones who are now spearheading the next step, which is from there, take it to the IEBC. If IEBC verifies the signatures to be legit, then it goes to the county assemblies, and then it goes to the National Assembly, it goes to the referendum, and then maybe then those changes are adopted by the people. Kakai Kissinger is a human rights lawyer. He sits in the BBI National Secretariat. He's in charge of outreach, training, and partnerships. He joins us on the line now. Good morning, Kakai.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Kakai, we've had a number of conversations this week on the BBI signature collection drive. You've also seen, it's been covered in the papers, there is a group that has gone to court, 5 activists that have gone to court, and they want some sections of the Constitution protected. There are other groups that have raised concerns about the process of BBI, the signature collection drive, the move to amend the Constitution. We have seen, and yesterday we spoke to the governor of Makueni County, the Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who is your senior in the profession, who has said similar issues that he has raised, and this is about the process of going to amend the Constitution. So you've heard all this. When you hear them at the Secretariat, what do? Do you look back and you're like, oh, what to? Or are you like, all right, so this one maybe has a point. Let's see if we can call him and invite him for tea.
Thank you very much. I think you've asked very valid questions in terms of the cases that are coming out of this entire process. And remember, this is still part of public participation that is ongoing, and people have rights to go to court and seek for interpretation of one thing or another. That's why courts exist, because courts exist to give interpretation to issues. Now, I want to pick from, and so it's the right to do so, and I want to pick from what you've said in terms of Kivutha Kibwana. Yes, it's my senior. He actually, in the early 90s or so, he taught me law at the University of Nairobi. And I think one of the biggest problems that is coming out of what I'm seeing in terms of cases that are coming in court is just not understanding the legal steps that are taking place, and also trying to merge the legal steps that are supposed to go on vis-a-vis the political process. Constitutional making is both legal and political. And so the merger between the two is very critical in terms of establishing a new constitutional order in place. Now, what Kivutha Kibwana says is that, if I understood it very well yesterday morning, because I was listening to your show, is that there are 78 issues that have come out of the BBI document. And number 3, there are 13 chapters that have come out of the BBI document. And that the BBI seeks to answer all these questions. And he proposes that the 78 questions that are coming out of the BBI document should then be addressed in a Q&A forum, whereby someone is given a chance to select which of the 78 issues he likes and which he doesn't like. But then the good old professor, who is actually my personal friend, failed to understand that actually the current BBI document that has gone through massive public participation since the handshake moment up till now has only actually 9 thematic areas. Only 9 thematic areas that Kenyans are being told, these are the 9 issues that if we as Kenyans settle them, we should be then happy a country. These are 9 issues that are coming out of the 2010 constitution. And the entire process of BBI was to actually improve the 2010 constitution and not to try in any way to water it down. So when you look at the 9 key issues, and I think you guys have read them and you know them, some of them are issues like corruption, divisive election, ethos, inclusivity, and so forth and so on. All those 9 issues, actually, when you look at them, some already found their way in policy legislation, because BBI was about policy legislation, BBI was about administrative legislation, BBI was about constitutional legislation, and BBI was about a legal framework in terms of legislation. So some of them have already been answered. There are policy issues that have been framed. That's why BBI has a very elaborate policy framework. There are legislative issues that have been framed, meaning some of those 9 issues have been unpacked into legislation. Quite a number of legislation then will take place. The third one is administrative action. Some of them have been prepared. There's a very comprehensive matrix on administration where some of those 9 have already found in there. There are only of the 9 thematic areas that BBI is talking about, only actually 4 of them find their way in the constitutional amendment bill that now is out there and people are discussing about it and signature collection is going on. So the good old professor, and myself personally, being in charge of the outreach with my other colleagues, I actually went and trained some governors. And I went to Northern Peak Hotel and trained governors and told them through what is this that has actually changed. From Northern Peak, we went to Naivasha and enlightened them, because civic education is part of a constitutional making process. I did not see Professor Kibwana in Movenpick. I saw him in Naivasha, but I think he walked in late. So I think what Professor Kibwana is trying to indicate or show is that there's need for us to continue doing what we are doing in terms of civic education. Because even him as a lawyer, he got confused of how to deal with those issues.
I think you're saying you're raising something, Kakai, and which is okay. So there are 9 thematic areas being addressed by the BBI. And then how many individual amendments have been proposed in the BBI in the Constitution Amendment Bill 2020? I think that's where the issue is. Are there 78 amendments being introduced, clauses by clause?
Yes, there are 78 of them. And he's right in terms of putting the 78 of them. But his understanding of aiming to understand that you can have as many issues as you can. Then when you reduce these issues into thematic areas, you are only looking at 4 issues in the thematic areas. Now, let me tell you something, which I think Professor Kibwana missed out completely. We learn from mistakes and we learn from other countries. This very basic issue of selecting referendum questions has been settled in very many jurisdictions. Let me give you an example. In 1998, Canada went through a similar process. When you remember Quebec was trying to secede from Canada. They went through this problem. And then they realized that this matter can only be dealt at the Supreme Court in Canada. The Supreme Court in Canada came up with 4 standards of how you should conduct a referendum. What is it that you must do to ensure that you conduct a referendum properly? Those 4, if you remember, you can read about it, and history never lies. One is that the question must be so simple. It shouldn't be ambiguous. Number 2, you need to go into a referendum or referenda with only one question. That question must either provoke a yes or no. Number 3 is that when you are going into a referendum, the ballot must be simple. Because, for example, how do you expect my grandfather from Kiminini, who is 78 years old, to go into a referendum and start cherry-picking the issues, the 78 issues that Professor Kibwana is talking about? It's not possible. The Constitution, after the last election, the Supreme Court of Kenya came up with a decision and said, if you are going into an election, remember that election was nullified because of the issues of the election was not simple, the result transmission was not simple, and was not verifiable. How do you then, with the current IBC, how will you manage to unpack a ballot paper with 78 questions, start unchecking or unpicking? How will you then mark and come up with a statistic to show actually how many are in favor of this and how many are not in
Kakai, if you step away from the process, Kakai, if you step away from the process of asking those questions, do you feel that there is merit in getting people to understand the process behind which they would answer this simple question? Because even as you give the example of Canada, hold on, let me ask the question. Let me finish the question. Even as you give the example of Canada, there was a reason why they said. Now, understanding the reason behind all of this is what now paved way for this simple question that they would then give, right? Is there need for Kenyans to understand the back end of this simple question? And I think that's what's important there. Before you answer yes or no, do you understand why you are answering this yes or no? Do you think that's important to understand?
Yes, it is important. For example, and this is even where you yourself need to be sensitized. For example, how long have we been talking about this BBI? It's almost 2 years.
We've talked about it for 2 years, yes.
What is public? Just a minute. What is public participation? Every single Kenyan, even us, me right now sitting with you guys and discussing this issue, is part of public participation. What is going on social media? The whole country is discussing BBI. That's public participation. As we go towards the referendum, because there are set timelines in terms of referendum, as we go towards the referendum, BBI Secretariat is going to roll out massive civic and education in terms of BBI. That you need to understand what it is that is going to take you into a referendum. So what we are talking about is civic education. And we're not lack of the capacities to do civic education. Kenyans are discussing. These are documents that belongs to Kenyans. Remember, even during the steering committee meetings, remember even during the task force moments, and I was privileged to have been part of the experts in the steering committee meetings. There was massive public participation. People were bringing in issues, people were bringing in memorandums, people were submitting ideas, people were discussing all this. When it was launched in commerce, people still went on discussing. When it was launched in care, people have been discussing. So there has been massive civic education. And it's not going to stop now, because civic education in terms of public participation must continue all the way to the referendum.
Mr. Kissinger, there's something I don't understand here. You keep saying that, I've heard you say it several times, that Professor Kibwana did not understand. And the implication seems to be there's a conflict in understanding. I don't see it. So I'd like you to explain to me. Professor Kibwana didn't have any issue with the 9 thematic areas. In fact, from what I understood, he said he was excited about it because it seemed to point away to something that he thought the country needed and it was long overdue. He seemed to focus on the amendments that these ensure that the thematic areas actually come into being would be required. Now, thematic areas, amendments, where's the conflict?
Thematic areas are the 9 issues that BBI decided that these are the issues affecting Kenya.
Yes.
The amendments that Professor Kibwana is talking about are amendments scattered in throughout the 9 thematic areas.
Yes.
That's what he's talking about. And what he's saying you should have each issue with an opportunity for a voter to say yes or no.
Yes, I still don't get the conflict.
And I'm telling you that you cannot do that because I've answered your question by saying...
Why can you not do that?
You cannot do that because one of the basic principles of an election, good practices and standards all over the world that has found itself a bearing in the current constitution says an election should be simple and verifiable. And I gave my example of my grandmother in the village. How will my grandmother in the village understand 78 issues within one ballot? She cannot understand that. My grandmother
actually, maybe they cannot understand it if it isn't explained well, but surely there are experts like yourself whose job it is to condense these things so that it's understandable in the simplest way possible. I mean, even when we elect individuals, do we know everything about them? No, we don't. Do we know everything about the political parties? No, we don't. We simplify it to just who we support. And yet...
And that's why I was saying...
Yes.
That's why you are saying the BBI Secretariat is planning to have massive civic education that will run all throughout. All cadres of people will be educated, will be told, will be unpacked. This BBI process already has... People have been... We've been training, for example. Personally, I've been training. I've trained members of parliament on BBI. I've trained all the governors in this country on BBI. I've talked to senators in terms of BBI. I've talked to journalists, media, and so forth on BBI. So this is part of the ongoing process. And nothing stops Kenyans and BBI secretariat to continue talking about, to unpacking the BBI report.
All
There
right.
are even versions of the Swahili report, which is being printed and shared by people so that even those who do not understand English are able to understand it in Swahili.
There's the other concern that comes in, which is the number of amendments that are being proposed. Those 78 amendments touching on 13 chapters out of the 18 chapters of the Constitution. This looks like a very far-reaching amendment of our Constitution. Is it justified? Is it the right time for that? Is this what Kenyans told the task force? Is it what Kenyans told you as experts when you're going around in the around the country? Is it what Kenyans said? All these 78 amendments?
My brother, and I want you to understand me and I want you to listen to me very carefully. These BBI proposals and what has found itself in the document that was unleashed in Bomas of Kenya and eventually in KICT did not come from heaven. It came from you and I. It came from every single Kenyan. The Secretariat went into 47 counties. They collected views from all corners of the country. People brought in, there was a very vibrant email account where people were sending in, those who could not come were sending in documents. There was a secretariat sitting and receiving documents.
Yeah.
There were town hall meetings coming in. Every single document, every single wording. It is not a generation of the secretariat or the former steering committee. It is what Kenyans wanted.
Is it an interpretation of what Kenyans wanted, or?
It is what Kenyans wanted. If Kenyans say, for example, let me talk about inclusivity. If people say that the problem of our country is issues of inclusivity, this is a problem we have identified. How do we solve inclusivity? The secretariat, not the steering committee, did not tell them how to solve it. The steering committee asked them, can you give us plausible chances or reasons of how we solve it? The steering committee's work was to document, to receive, document, and reduce it into a report.
Maybe I could ask this question from this angle. What we saw in 2002, when Yashpal Gai finished his work with the commission, they came up with an entire report which contained everything that they had been told by the people. In fact, even going to say, in this particular sitting, this is what we were told. This is what we received. Do we have something like that from the BBI task force? Secondly, when they came up with that report, then we had the conference where people sat down and they went through the process of looking at what had been said and therefore how is it being translated into a draft constitution or into the draft. Have we had a similar move done with this particular process?
The move that has been done and which continues to be done before even this bill was published has always been consensus building. And I've said it before. And I'm privileged that I was on that as an expert. And I can assure you, consensus building took place all throughout.
Okay. If consensus building took place.
For example, as I said from the beginning, that a constitutional making process is both legal and is both political. So there has to be a merger between the legality of the document and the political nature.
Sure. Is there a place, Kaika, is there a place that Kenyans can actually go and see that this is a report, it's been tabulated, and this is actually what people said, just as we saw with constitutional building that took place during the times of Yashpal Gai? Is there documented that you can see this is actually what Kenyans said?
And that if you left certain things that were said out, reasons why they were left out, and others included.
Yes. Yes, those documents still belong to the Secretariat. Those documents are valid. Even you yourself, by the way, you should take an advantage and go and ask, let me follow or trace, for example, devolution. What is it that you guys documented in terms of devolution? It will be, it's the documents are there. Not documents.
Where are they exactly?
The documents are there.
They're where?
So
we know where the Yashpal
out,
Gai documents were. When the Yashpal Gai documents were produced, we know where they were. You could go to Bomas during the National Constitutional Conference. You read. That was part of the agenda of the National Constitutional Conference. When you experts were coming up now with, trying to understand and translate what Kenyans have said and coming up with a report, what is it that you are using? Do we have access to that? Have you published it?
My brother, there was a task force. Do you remember the task force?
Yes.
That task force was the depository of all those documents that were coming in.
Did they publish them?
At no given time did anybody question or say, where are these documents at the time the task force was in place?
Oh, yes, there was. On this particular show, we hosted Paul Mwangi, the secretary, and we asked for those reports. And he said those reports will be made available. That's why we are asking again now, where are those reports?
Because for public participation to be complete, surely, don't you think that everything in and about and around the BBI should be available so that the public participation can be comprehensive and can be complete?
And I'm telling you that if, for example, you as a media house, Spice FM, you wrote an official letter, for example, to Paul Mwangi and Professor Adamolo, right? And you told Professor Mwangi and Adamolo, give us those documents that you guys relied on to come up with the report. Do you think they will refuse to give you? No, they will not. They will share all those documents. Those are public documents, my brother. And for example, every county government in this country gave a report. You can even ask county government, can you give us the report you gave vis-a-vis what came out within the compartment? They are there. They are documents that are public.
Kakai, we want to thank you. I think we just ran out of time, unfortunately. This is a conversation that requires longer, and we want to invite you for a longer conversation on this to look at starting the process of civic education, starting how then you want to go about making sure that everybody understands how we got where we are. As you will completely agree and acknowledge, there are very many quarters that have come out to ask very many questions regarding the BBI report from Bomas and even the BBI report from KICC, religious organizations, Catholic bishops, medical professionals, politicians. We have seen all these. Then what is it that they are saying, and how are you as a secretariat listening to them, and how do you want to engage them? We'll invite you for that longer conversation.
No problem, and I really encourage you guys to read the report as well. Eh?
We have read the entire. We have read all the reports. 1, 2, 3. We have read all of them. Asante sana.
Now, if you have read, then you wouldn't be saying what you have just said.
Asante sana. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We now want to say goodbye to our audience in Katie and home. You've been with us since 7 o'clock. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. But the conversations continue on Spice FM this and every weekday morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
3 minutes to 9 o'clock. The conversations continue right here in the Situation Room. So there's a lot of work to be done. And like the person in charge of outreach, of partnerships, of training is saying that they want to embark on that and going around the country to explain to everybody. So this is what is contained. Do we have enough time between now and March to go around the country and make sure that, like he said, every old man in the village can understand these are the 78 amendments. When you're saying yes to the 78 amendments. When you're saying no to the 78 amendments.
Look, yeah, I think in terms of understanding what it is, I think it's absolutely necessary in terms of understanding what it is that you're saying yes or no to. Look at any example that you want to give around the world where a referenda took place. And by the time they're saying it is demanding that we give a simple answer in terms of what you're then going to vote for, there were certain prerequisites that needed to have been filled in order for you to get to that point. It's not as though anybody went to the Supreme Court today and got an answer tomorrow. There are many cases where, in fact, people went to the Supreme Court and asked questions, and then you had to take a backseat for some time to go through civic education, to go through reintroduction of the process of public participation, to then get an understanding across board. And then they said, now that this has been done, you may then go ahead and ask your yes or no question. It wasn't just for the sake of it. It was really entrenching an understanding of what these issues were. Before you can go and say yes or no, understanding what those issues were. So it's very easy for us to give examples around the world, but then what was the process behind the ruling that was given? Certain things took place. It's absolutely necessary to take those things into consideration.
I still have an issue with coming out of, receiving reports and then, receiving submissions from the people and then just writing a report and then going back to the people and saying, no, this is what was said. I am not sure. I wasn't there when people in Garissa turned up or in Mwiki. I wasn't there. So I'd like to see that. And it would have been nice to have that conversation. I've said it many times. It would have been very nice to have some sort of sittings where then this is discussed and then this is agreed. You could have made them 47, you could have made it 1 at Bomas. This was important. Anyway, we're where we are. The train is already going. So let's discuss all these conversations, knowing full well that the train is moving. Keep it right here for more conversations in the next hour. We will have, a lot of things to discuss in the 9 o'clock hour. We'll also be asking you to join in and call us and share with us what you think we've discussed. Good morning. 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Traffic looking much better in certain parts of the city. Getting off the road into the CBD and out, also looking pretty good. In and outbound traffic on Mombasa Road, which was a mess before, seems to be opening up now and it's not too crazy. A little few spots here and there, but you get in with no problem. Uhuru Highway, now that all the traffic is off the major roads, is what is suffering from that clog up right about now. Getting into Westlands and the CBD also is going to take some time, but you should be all right generally thereafter. All right, through the days, if it clogs up, let us know. In half an hour or so, we'll let you know what the report is on the status of traffic. Okay, Spice of MKE, don't forget, on Twitter or 40127 on text.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start.
2 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are here. This is our final hour. We've got very many comments that have come in from all the conversations that we've had this morning. The conversation on cancer, the conversation on the economy, the performance of the Nairobi Stock Securities Exchange, performance of our shilling, and the plight of taxi drivers as well. Many of them. Where do you want to start?
Okay, let's start with taxi drivers. Thank you for dedicating time to address the plight of Uber drivers, according to Martin Jockey. I have been an online driver for about a year. I hope you'll dedicate more time soon to this. The business has gone bad, making many people who depended on it to really suffer. So it's an issue that many people having to deal with right around now. Wamagunda Gadhua says a big struggle for the drivers and partners to essentially make ends meet when it comes to cab hailing in the country. It's good for a lot of people and those who don't have to do the driving and the servicing and maintenance of the vehicles, but it seems to be a nightmare for the drivers. Also, then if we want to go to the BBI conversation, yes, documents seem to be non-existent. Going by the answers that you're getting, it's important to have that information out there in terms of who said what and where they said it, so that you can use it as a reference point for the future. You don't have something like that, then it's very difficult to say, this is the reason why we are making these decisions moving forward. So, yeah, some of the things that we're hearing this morning.
Thank you very much for all your comments, and we want to encourage you to keep commenting and keep participating in the show. 0719012600 is also the number that you can call and continue with these conversations. So we've had very many things that we've said, even with regards to the management of these taxi hailing apps, and then the management now of the process of taking us to a referendum and amending the constitution, the proposals that have been made to amend the constitution, and trying to understand them. It makes sense, and what Kakai Kissinger, for example, has said, looking at the case of Canada and the ruling there, make this process simple, make the ballot simple, make it a one question. Don't ask, what would you like? So it's not about asking an opinion. It's about just asking yes, no. That is a simple question. Not asking, what would you like to see amended in the Constitution? And someone has to write a sentence, or in 5 short words, what would you like to see amended? No, make it a simple one. Yes, no.
You see, all the complications are supposed to be taken care of during the civic education. Now, so the understanding of anything as complex as this is not in the referendum, but it's what precedes the referendum.
Before.
Yes. And so perhaps the question that I would ask is, how what? When there is public participation and there's public education, there's public information, and there's public sensitization, all these lovely words, we need the guarantee that every issue that appears to have been contentious or not easy to understand is discussed, and the understanding of that discussion is also brought forth, so that it isn't a question of us doubting, wondering, thinking. It's clear. So that when the yes and no issue comes up, whatever else may have been discussed has been taken care of. So people understand why they're saying yes or no.
Exactly. By the time you're getting to yes or no, you are at the place where, without shadow of doubt, without ifs, ands, buts, or maybes, everybody gets why they're saying yes or no. But unfortunately, with what you're dealing with, it would appear that people are saying yes or no because somebody said say yes. Somebody's saying no because somebody said say no. Somebody's saying... There is no uniform understanding across the board of the reasons why we're saying yes. And I'm going to go back to that Canada example. By the time they were getting to the Supreme Court, the Supreme said, okay, hold on a minute. We're going to make it simple, but we're only going to make it simple on the foundation that everybody understands what they're saying yes or no about. And in order for that to happen, you're going to have to go back to that public participation. You're going to have to go back to that civic education. You don't do that, then we're going to throw this whole thing out. When they were satisfied that this had actually taken place, then they said, all right, the formula that we're going to apply to this then is yes or no. And the only reason we are doing that is because there's uniform understanding. That will not happen otherwise. But it would appear that there's a rush. Like we said, the train has already left the station. Things are already moving along. So there is no time to start explaining to people again what this yes, no actually means. Unfortunately.
Actually, our constitution demands that is exactly what happens.
The same constitution they're trying to change now. So
yes, it demands that if you are going to forget something as fundamental as changing the constitution, even when you're reading budgets, even when you're making decisions at the level of the county, you must engage the public. You must engage them, because remember, our constitution starts by telling us that this particular delightful document, we, the citizens of Kenya, we
give unto ourselves.
Yes, we. Yes. So when we're talking to our political leaders, essentially, our leaders in this context are actually our servants. So we are talking to our servants, and we're telling them exactly what it is that we want.
But guys, an argument is put forth, and you've even heard Kakai Kissinger saying the same thing. Look, this has been a 2-year journey.
It has.
2-year journey. Task force went around the country, 47 counties. Task force came back. You guys started talking about, the BBI report, and you were told, wait for the report to come out. Report came out, and you saw what was presented in the report. Then task force was now converted into steering committee. Steering committee was added some experts into it, into which Mr. Kakai Kissinger was a member, and other lawyers were also members. They again went around the country. So they say they heard from the people, and that's why they came up with BBI 2. BBI 2 is a result of public participation. How else do you want to define this public participation?
You know, To answer that question, you have to ask: is there too much public participation or too little participation?
Because look, I can understand where that question is coming from. Because it would be like, all right, folks, if we're going to have everybody involved in the process, we're going to be at this thing for years, right? Because there's always going to be a chance that somebody jumps out of the woodwork and say, hold on a minute, I don't think this should work. I think that I should be involved. This is my side. There's that. But I think that it needs to be seen across board that people have had an opportunity to participate. It needs to be seen. It would then become a bit worrisome that as things are starting to roll, that you have people, not one, not two, not three, but quite a number of groups and individuals coming out and saying, hold on a minute. Can we have this? This is not what we said. You even have people who were involved in the process themselves saying, hold on a minute, things were changed. I did not know that this was part of the doc. So it's going to raise your eyebrows when you have that. I do agree that it is absolutely not possible to have everybody participate in the process and then have their views be merged. It's not possible.
So let's
but it
open
would be
this up
seen
for...
to be that the general majority is on the same page.
You know, the
let's
idea...
hear, hold on, let's just hear from Jimmy. Jimmy has been holding on the line, and he's on the line. Jimmy in Malindi, good morning.
Good morning, too.
How are you today, Jimmy?
We're fine. The weather is cool.
Very good.
Super.
Yeah. Otherwise, going straight to the point, you know, there's a tendency where people do forget, and especially the leaders, we as Kenyans, we have proved that we are very, very, very shallow-minded. Sorry, let me use the right word, because not all Kenyans are shallow-minded. Me as a Kenyan, I've proved that my mind is very shallow, that your leader will tell you, do this, and you will do it even without reasoning. You look at the Constitution, and this is where the judiciary, I can say it has failed. And Maranga may go as a failed leader of the judiciary in Kenya. You know why I say this? Because it's clear in the Constitution, 165, I think 168 there. I don't have it now, but I can quote it. I can explain what it says. The Supreme Court, Mahakama Kuu, ndiyo mahakama isiyokuwa na mpaka wowote kwenye swala lolote la kisheria au haki. Unaona? So, Mahakama Kuu, and the Mahakama Kuu, Mahakama Kuu has been credited and has been given a very high right where it can overlook if the Constitution being violated or is the Constitution being followed the right way. So, if you have been given it under your jurisdiction to see that the way things are going are not going right, why would you keep quiet? We the citizens, why can we accept to be told to vote or to accept something that even we have not seen or we have not read? So, whatever is going on here, it is all unconstitutional. And these leaders, they were elected and swore they will protect the Constitution of Kenya. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta as the president. He swore and he will protect the Constitution of Kenya. And when it comes now that there is a handshake, one person did not swear that he will protect the Constitution of Kenya. So, why would you have a handshake with someone that declares that the Constitution is my foot? Because one thing, if we don't respect this Constitution, then you don't respect the citizens of this country. And we as the citizens of this country should come to our mind and know that the people who are claiming that you should accept the Constitution, you should accept the changes, these people, we should look if they've been given handouts. We know very well that Kabaka Mwanga was given boots, was given a bicycle, was even given a coat by the colonizers, and he accepted everything that they said. So we should not listen to the people who are telling you do this, do that. You should come straight. Why would we not amend the clause that says we should have the 1/3? Why should we say that? In Kenya, we don't hatubagui. We are not discriminative. If you have been elected a leader of an MP of your region, you are an MP for the women, you are an MP for the men and of the child. Why would we have women representatives? Well, we don't have men representatives and children representatives.
Jimmy, you feel very strongly about this, don't you?
Yes.
I'm saying you feel very strongly about this. I'm listening to you, and this is something that really matters to you.
It really matters because I know we are going in a ditch, and in 40 years, 50 years to come, our generation will cast us to the grave. Why? We did not stand up to protect who is a genuine Kenyan. Look at the Constitution, number 13. We have got our sister there who is a Kenyan by choice, Nigerian by birth. Look, what does the Constitution of Nigeria say? If you want, I don't know, but our former Kenyan Constitution and the Constitution of America, it says that if you want to get the citizenship of America by marriage, which is the easiest way to get the citizenship, you must lose your citizenship of your country for America to give you the citizenship of America if you're acquiring citizenship by marriage.
Many countries in the world actually accept dual citizenship. Jimmy. Many countries.
Excuse me.
But
the citizenship by marriage. Citizenship by marriage. Dual citizenship is accepted. You can acquire citizenship in any other format, in any other way. But the easiest way is the citizenship by marriage. Like India also. If you are a citizen, I'm married to a citizen of India.
Let me just pause you because I think we are veering off from this into very many other interests. But thank you very much for your conversation this morning, Jimmy, and keep listening. We want to also welcome everybody else. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. The process of the BBI where we are at, we are heading into collecting of signatures. People have been signing signatures. There's still disquiet among various quarters on exactly what has happened so far. Some quarters feeling that they were not involved. Some quarters feeling that this is an illegitimate process because of how it has been conducted. Other quarters feeling that, a lot of other things should have been taken into consideration. All these are very, very important conversations to have, and that's why we're having them this morning. 9:15, let's take a break. Let's see what's happening in terms of the weather, and then we'll take more of your calls. That's 0719-012-600. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-bellied people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know.
Yeah.
She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice. Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, sunny skies throughout Nairobi today. The high will be
weather.
25. The skies will be cloudy later. We'll see a low of 15 in Nairobi. 21 degrees and mostly sunny in Nakuru throughout today. Highs of 24 and lows of 12. Sunny conditions in Nyeri at 20 with highs of 26 and lows of 13. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret at 21. Highs of 24 and lows of 11. Mostly sunny in Kisumu at 21. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 20. Sunny conditions also in Kakamega at 21 with highs of 28 and lows of 15. 30 will be the high in Mombasa today. Rain showers in most parts. Lows of 26. Mostly sunny in Malindi at 21. Highs of 27 and lows of 16. Sunny conditions stepping out of Kenya looking into Kampala. Partly sunny through most parts of the day into cloudy conditions later then with highs of 27 and lows of 17. Dar es Salaam experiencing light rain this morning, highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 17 degrees with highs of 27 and lows of 13. Light rains in Lagos at 26, highs of 33 and lows of 25. Also continues to rain in Kinshasa at 30. That will be the high with lows of 24. Let's take a look at Beijing. Yes, it's 2 degrees, but it's sunny. It doesn't mean it's warm because it's freezing, and it'll go below 4, as into -4 today. Taking a look then into Paris, we're looking at cloudy conditions through the day at 7 with highs of 8 and lows of 6. London at 4, highs of 7. Clear skies, and it's cloudy in New York at 4. Getting well into winter, highs of 8 and lows of 2.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Right, as we continue with the conversations, we have had discussions on various issues this morning. We're talking about the BBI, we're talking about the cost of cancer treatment and cancer care in the country, and also the plight of drivers, especially those that are using the hailing apps. We've got many. We spoke with 2 drivers this morning, and you heard what they were saying, right? The issue is, first of all, percentage of commission that goes to the owner of the platform is fixed at 25%. And then the owner of the platform is one that determines how much is going to be charged per fare. And this is how much per kilometer. One of them, Edwin, was telling us, giving us an example. Coming from Westlands to the CBD, it'll cost you 150 shillings. So with 150 shillings, if 25% goes to the owner of the platform, that's about 37 bob. You're then left with what, 123 or 120 something shillings. Let's say 125 bob. From the 125 shillings, then now you're thinking about how much you need to service, to fuel your car. Says in an 1800 or in a 1600 cc car, maybe it's going to take you a liter of fuel. How much is a liter of fuel right now? So from that 125 bob that you're left with, a lot of it has gone into fuel. So you, just like Moses was saying, you're hung upside down. One leg is tied by the commission, the other leg is tied by fuel. And you're just left there driving around the country, around the city, and not making much money. We want to reach out to Uber as well and get their view on this. Also want to reach out to the other hailing apps and the platforms and want to hear what exactly they have to say about this. But the plight of drivers has come in, and just like you've seen, somebody like Martin Jockey saying he has been an online driver for about a year, hoping that he will dedicate more time soon because this business has gone too bad, making many people who depend on it to suffer. So we want to hear from more drivers. 0719 012 That's 0719 012 Already we have one on the line, and this is Brian calling in from Mombasa. Good morning, Brian.
You're my client? Yeah. Karibu.
Oh, Brian, you just got a client.
Yeah, I just got a client.
Okay. Would you like to talk to us, or would you like to, first of all, deal with the client?
My client is a very lovely lady, and she's going to be very accommodating. I'm sure she understands that some things have got to be done while the iron is still hot.
All right. Please explain to her that you're speaking to Spice FM.
And please make sure you're speaking hands-free.
And I make sure that I'm
speaking hands-free while you drive.
Oh, certainly. That goes without saying.
All right, Brian. So, issue of the plight of drivers, and you were in Mombasa. We were speaking to 2 who are in Nairobi. Is the story similar?
Yes, the story is very similar. Mm-hmm. That is exactly what we are going through. Exactly. However, I find that the information that you're having right now is what is being peddled around throughout. Therefore, it's like people are already tired of it.
Okay.
And it can't go down like that because it's a lot deeper than what you're talking about. Mm. You need to examine the way this app has been designed. How they are particularly designed will tell you a lot about the character of the business. Yes. Okay. It puts public transport at a different level, a higher level, a more technology-based level. Yes. But it fails to incorporate other very important fundamentals. For example, the person who's providing this service, if he is not catered for adequately by just going machine-like, then you lose the entire customer service experience. And you cannot have that. You cannot have that. You cannot compromise that particular angle. You can't. And an unhappy driver will always, or an unhappy servant, right, business associate will always, partner, will always under-deliver.
Yeah.
Always.
So what is this that about the business model that you think we need to look at? What is it that you've seen? I'm sure you've been driving for a while. How long have you been driving, Brian?
Driving PSV almost all my life.
Okay. How long have you been driving Uber?
Come again?
How long have you been driving this platform taxis?
4 years.
So 4 years. So then you have a better understanding of how their business model is like. What have you gleaned so far? What can you tell us?
Okay. Well, there's nothing wrong per se with the business model, other than the one thing that they want to embrace everything. They do not know when to say enough. They want every customer, right from the one who's in Karen to the one who's in Magare. Now, that is impossible. You cannot do that. It's just not possible. You want us to maintain these vehicles. By the way, public transport, taxi business, is an exclusive service, not inclusive. Meaning that an individual gets in and he gets that service to him. It's personalized.
Yep.
And you cannot walk into Kempinski, get first-class service, clean everything, tidy, catered to hand and foot, and then you want to pay the price of a kibanga. That is ridiculous. It just cannot go that way. It cannot go down like that. Apana, it's not possible.
So, Brian, what you're saying basically is you'd like us, clients, to pay a bit more.
Yeah. Come again?
You'd like us, your clients, to pay a bit more.
There is no choice. I mean, it's an exclusive service. You cannot just have it. You can't have it being made affordable so that the client is happy. And the client, or while the client is the most important person in our business, not all clients will add value to what you're doing. If I'm spending more cost in giving him service, I'm getting nothing in return. It ceases to be a business. It becomes a charity.
That's very true. That's very true.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brian,
so are
thank
we going
you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now you can switch on the radio so that even your client can hear what we are discussing. Asante sana for sharing.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Other drivers, please call in 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We're talking about the plight of taxi drivers, especially those that are using the technology apps in the country. Complaints coming from various quarters indicate that drivers are unhappy over a number of things. One, the fares being charged by the apps. Two, the commission being taken by the apps. And so what is left with the driver is not business. It doesn't make business sense.
True, doesn't make. I mean, if you want to hear it from where they're coming from. However, when all of this started coming, what was it? Everybody thought fantastic hailing app, where transport app whereby you're paying very little money. It can take you across the city and you're paying maybe sometimes a fourth of what you would have paid before.
Yeah.
We never really took into consideration that there are folks who are steering this vehicle, right? There are people who are driving it and got into the business because they wanted to make money from it or survive. It was a welcome thing that low rates to be able to take you wherever you needed to go.
Yes.
We wouldn't consider.
I wanted to be
It sounds inhumane, but you wouldn't really consider that there's a driver whose 25% has been chopped off. He's got to pay fuel, or she has got to pay fuel, and then they're making very little at the end of the day. It never did actually cross the mind.
The picture was not always gloomy. Huh?
No, it started out well.
If we listen to what if we believe, and I do believe what we were told earlier on, it was profitable. The reason why people went into it, the report about it was good.
Yes.
And this is a platform that enabled you to get clients without you even budging. You simply sat and you were told, here is a client.
Yeah.
No, so if you balance it and you ask yourself that the people who actually own this particular platform are also business people and they hope to make money. So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about unprincipled ways of doing business?
Do you know what happened?
It's a profit sharing then.
But there was competition that was then included into the market. And this is what happened. Is because the 25% that they're talking about has been the 25%. It's not as if it was 50 and then, or that it was 10 and then it was increased to 25. It has always been. What happened is that they then reduced the fare that they would charge clients. But we saw that a lot of reduction in fares and a lot of the promotions that were being given from app to app was in competition to the other. So it was really who can give the lowest app and then get more people on our platform. And in doing that, the driver was hurt.
The nature of the business.
Yes, but breaking news here. This is what competition does.
Understood.
Initially,
Yes.
the competition was the other taxis.
Yes.
Now competition is fellow app drivers.
Yes.
Let's hear from Solomon in Mombasa. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, to
Morning.
you, Solomon.
I'm not a Uber driver, but I am I'm a customer.
Right.
Yes.
So sometimes I usually frequently use Uber, but sometimes there's some things you call common sense, and I usually say in this way: a Uber may drive you maybe from town to Upper Hill, and they charge you 140 shillings. Then you just do your math. If you're a driver before, you know how much that car will consume. Yeah. And sometimes you find the Uber is asking 140 shillings, and you say, no, this is not even correct, or it's even unfair. You give this person around 300 shillings out of, because you know how
You are a very kind person, Solomon. And not only kind, but you're also very generous.
Because there's a day I asked one of the Uber drivers, what kind of customers do you guys like? And he told me he like anyone who is above 35. And I asked him why, because these people have been using taxis before Uber came. So they have an approximate figure of that. They have an approximate figure of the amount to pay to taxis even before. So even if the amount comes to 200, you find this girl will give you 400 to 500 shillings because they have an experience of that. But these other generation, if they see 140 shillings, wataingia wote wanne, they pay the 140 shillings. So it becomes sometimes unfair. Depending even how this driver treats you, sometimes you enter, they give you a newspaper. You see,
but Solomon, consider that before, if you look at the history of taxis in this country, you're starting from a point where taxi by definition had to be an ancient car that probably needed to be pushed before it started, to the point where there were reasonable cars that you could get into and you don't fear that somehow your garment will be soiled or something will get hold of it. No, none of that. Now, if you use the airports in this country, what you will find is that taxi drivers would charge you anything that hits their head.
Yes. So even
because the figures, you come by plane, it's expensive.
You can continue.
You just continue paying this high after all. You've flown in.
Yeah.
So Uber brought in a level playing field, and they realized, for us to actually go into business and survive, we need to perhaps be a little reasonable.
Yes.
For instance, Nairobi, the JKIA to town, you would find someone charging you 4,000, another one 2,000.
That's what it was. That's what the price was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how much is it now?
Now you can get from the airport to Westlands at less than 1,000 shillings.
Yep.
Yes. So all I'm saying is that, yes, if you look at the human element in the discussion, there are some horror stories being told here. But if you're looking at business purely in terms of business, really there is no such thing. But there it is. Competition does exactly what we are seeing.
Lower the prices.
Yes, and the person who benefits is the consumer.
Yes, but at least even if the prices are going lower, it should be reasonable, both to the customer and both to the taxi operator.
Okay, Solomon, I hear you. I'm not sure about now what then makes it reasonable to both, because for me, when I am paid 100 and when I am charged 200 bob from Nairobi to Westlands, I'm happy. Because it makes sense to me to pay 200 shillings from Nairobi to Westlands. It's it's around the same amount of money that they were charging even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the same taxi driver would then go home with more money. Here we are talking about now the number of times a driver will be able to get a client. Initially, they tell you that, coming from Westlands to the CBD, by the time you get into the CBD, already the app is telling you there's another client waiting for you to take them elsewhere. As you're speaking to Moses and Edwin earlier, they were saying you'd actually even sit and wait for hours before you get the next client.
But sometimes it's usually applicable maybe to city centers. If, for example, you go outskirts, maybe for example, like in Kiambu, you go to Kiambu, you take a taxi, maybe it takes you to Dumberi. The chances of getting a person from Dumberi back to Kiambu is 0.
Yes, but Solomon,
Then
there's a flip side to this as well. You see, when you took the normal taxis, you agreed on a fare, that was it. With Uber, if you are caught in traffic, for instance, you will end up paying a lot more than you would ordinarily pay for that same distance if there's no traffic.
Oh, that was before, by the way. I think nowadays...
Now they've capped that traffic issue.
It's capped.
All right. Now, you see, I've been updated. Now,
so all those things have changed.
Yes. Now, anyone who is in any business, surely, should you not be updated about what is happening in your business, and then you apply whatever rules of adaptation that are required for you to survive?
I would actually argue that the apps were reacting to customer concerns, because you'd get into a cab and then you see this driver going into that route where he knows there's going to be traffic, so that it just goes up, takes you around. He's supposed to be taking you, using the hypotenuse. The guy does a square plus b square.
CT.
Yes.
Even you look at on the taxi, even the most that benefits the customer more is the security issue. Because even a long time ago, you used to go ask a taxi how much is to Westlands. You don't know this person. You don't know whatever will happen, where he'll take you. You don't know where to report. But when it comes to app, this person, there's a model you can able to track the driver, the vehicle, and everything. You see. On the security purposes.
It is
true,
that's
Solomon. Beneficial to us.
It is true, Solomon, but in the city of Nairobi, the opposite story is what you hear often of a taxi driver who got passengers who later robbed them.
So the pyramid was shifted. Let's take a break. Solomon, thank you very much for your call. We're having a conversation about taxi and taxi business in the country. 0719-012-600. Many complaints coming from taxi drivers and those operating the taxis, especially those that are using technology, and what is happening to them, how much they're then taking home today, what is the plight of the drivers from the client point of view, from the platform point of view, and from the driver's point of view. 25 minutes to 10. Let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads in traffic. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt
Spice up your life.
Okay. So the border gentlemen and ladies maybe have blocked the road at Mlolongo. It's causing some traffic there. Police are there and there's some tear gas being lobbed for some reason. We're not quite sure the reason why. But inbound, there's going to be a traffic issue this morning. There already is, and it's moving slowly. You approach with caution if you're headed in that direction. Really need to find out what exactly is going on in that area. But just know that there's traffic buildup heading into Mombasa Road. Okay, Wayaki Way still clogged a little bit. The contractor is moving things this morning, and so right about 9 o'clock is when the traffic situation got a little bit worse. It's a construction issue, and that's what's going on. If you can get your way out of there, you can use James Gishore and go the long way, or you can use the Red Hill bypass and go in the other direction. Apart from that, traffic does look much better around most parts of the city, at least for now. Through the day, talk to us, let us know what you see in case it gets crazy. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
And we'd like to hear from you on 0719-012-600 or Spice FM KE on Twitter and on Facebook, discussing the business of taxis in the country. So the business model, as you can see, and as we were told by Brian, clearly, the taxi hailing app wants to serve as many people as possible. So you want to be able to know that if I go to my app and I want to travel somewhere, it will be able to locate a driver within the shortest time possible, the one who can come to me within the shortest time possible. And that is what I, as a client, would like. This is what I want to see. And then when I look at how much I'm being charged, it's something I can see, all right, it's not much. It's reasonable for me to use this particular app because there are very many other apps already in the market. So the downside of this is what is happening on the side of the person who is actually the partner of this app. So let me just give you an example of what is happening on the ground. So you take an Uber from the CBD, for example, to Westlands. The trip fare would be 310 shillings ordinarily. But there is a promotion which gives a discount to the person, the client, that is me, of 80 bob.
Nice. So
from 310 shillings, I am given a discount of 80 shillings. Fantastic. I love that, right? So I end up paying 230 bob. So this 230 is what now the app and the driver will split on a 25-75% difference. So the app will take the 25%, the driver is left with the 75%. Now this 75% is everything for them.
Why are we being given the discount again?
Because you're good people.
You're nice. You decided to choose them this morning. Not
so
anybody
you get a
else.
discount because you've chosen them.
This is to entice you to actually use
keep
this
coming
app.
back.
Because remember, if you look and you saw that this is expensive, then you'll start, you guys.
You
these
look
guys
for
have
somebody
become
else, no?
expensive. And there are very many other apps right now. So you'll go to the other one. Let's hear from Wangeshi in Nakuru. Wangeshi, good morning.
Morning.
How are you? It's been a while.
Very fine, thank you. Hi, Ndo.
Hi.
Hi, Sweetie.
Hello.
Erika Bariako.
Sweetie, ako sawa.
Sasa, mine is very brief. All
right.
It's about the Uber drivers and all these drivers who are on these apps.
All right.
And I'm talking as a citizen who will every once in a while use their services.
Yep.
And for me, I think that the whole thing is the whole blame is on the Minister of Transport desk. That's he's government that has failed to take care of this business. When you consider that most of the Uber drivers, Bolt, all of the range, are young men and women, and it's just Silicon Valley big tech coming up with an app. They did their strategic research. They saw a gap in developing countries, not just developing countries. They knew that there was a gap where the young and middle class, young and upcoming graduates with disposable income would want to use transport systems that are fair in pricing.
Yep.
Because of jams in towns, because a lot of young people have cars, but because of the convenience of leaving a car at home and then being able to travel at a minimal rate. So they came up with the apps. But in these countries, like that young driver was talking about Germany, and even in London, I remember the time even those drivers were striking in London and Uber was almost thrown out.
All over the world, actually. Very many major cities.
Their government fought for their people. They fought and they knew the role that these drivers play in keeping unemployment down.
So Wangeshi, what is it that the Ministry of Education, but Ministry of Transport in our case, should be doing?
They should be more proactive when it comes to the cost of fuel. Because the app itself is not bad. Silicon Valley techs they're just business people.
Yep.
It's the government should be more proactive in addressing themselves. Like, what can we do now that the apps are here? what can we do to help these drivers and cab owners so that they remain on the road, they remain gainfully employed? Because they should look at it from the point of view, it is us that they are helping.
Yeah, it's employment.
It's government that, yes, exactly. But they are not. They need to have a paradigm shift. They need to change the way they see things. Government needs to change the way they see things. Like these people are employing. The way they've started seeing things differently when it comes to border.
True. That's very true.
Why don't they do this for these app drivers?
Thank you very much, Wangeshi.
Okay. Have a good day, all of you.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Louis in Mombasa, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Louis.
Yeah. Basically, just a small comment.
Yep.
One thing we do, okay, I'm a tech guy, so I'm on the upside on the technology front because of the level playing field approach. However, let's remember that matatus don't exist in the West.
Yep.
So the market share that Uber has, say, in US or Europe or wherever places have been, they are able to leverage on the availability of passengers. So you do have a high turnover, high run-through of passengers. Whereas here, public transport takes a big chunk of who travels where, and the little chunk that is left in between is left to the cabs and the Ubers. Now, I have personally a taxi guy I know for like 15 years. When I'm in town in Nairobi, I call him. Why? He's safe. I know him. I can leave my bags in the car. I can't do the same with Uber, no matter how cheap it is. Not because I can't afford an Uber or Uber is not the right thing for me. It's just that I am used to a certain level of service. On the other front, I might be a small percentage of any traveler, granted. So I'm on the side of Uber for the technology. We do have the level playing field for price. However,
but I have to stop you there, because if we're looking at public transport systems, the truth of the matter is that the majority of people in these societies that you're talking about use the tube, they use the train, they use buses.
They use the tram.
The truth of the matter is that the public transport systems are so secure that you never really hear of it. The minority of people are using taxis. That's the case.
Let me explain something. In the West, the Uber is your last mile. From your train station to your home. From your bus stop to your home. I have used travel in the US, in Europe, where I've traveled. Yes, the public transport system is effective and secure, whether it's snowing or it's hot. However, when you drop at the stage or the bus stop there, or the tram stop or the train stop, you're not dropped at your house. So you have to get a cab. Most times you'll get an Uber and it's fare. So they still have a large percentage of passengers because there's no train that stops at anyone's house. So still, Uber does have a fare there, and a big one, the last mile. Whereas in Kenya, we are trying to use Uber as a matatu, whereby if we don't want to go with a matri, we can bunch up 5 people and get into a car and go to where we want to go. Let's go to Westlands, let's go to here. Yes, there is public transport for that. But we feel, okay, an Uber will be better, and anyway, we'll share like 4 people, 3 people.
In truth, there is no
to the
public
shilling.
transport for that. There is public service. There is passenger service vehicle for that. We don't have public transport here. Thank you very much, Louis, though. Thank you for your contribution.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys.
Asante sana. We still stay in Mombasa. And now we spoke to Solomon, the passenger. Now let's speak to Solomon, the driver. Solomon, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well.
It's good that you guys are having this conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm at the airport as we speak, so it might be a little bit noisy.
So tell us now,
Yes.
Solomon, the driver. So you've heard from your fellow drivers, and you're hearing from passengers and everybody else on this particular issue. What is your take?
This business, when it started a very good business. But the way we're going, it's going to be a downfall. And I am saying that in this level. The prices have been very minimal. Taxis are now being misused. Where we used to have people who get taxis because for their conveniences. But now taxis have started being used like matatus. We have people who are shifting, they request you, and Nikuhama, Nahama, it becomes an issue. And the prices are very small. And when you look at where you're going, your last destination, when you consider the road, the security also is not safeguarding us as drivers. The time that these people go to their destination is not also secure for us, right? So, and the way the platform is put as, in a way, you're supposed to get a to and from trip.
Yeah.
So at times you will go for a trip that is only charged for one way. So 2 ways is a loss. Okay, these are things that are not put into consideration.
It sounds to me, Solomon, that the issue is not really the app or the business of the app. It's actually everything else, the infrastructure, the government, the organization, the fact that you don't have proper infrastructure.
Yeah, but the government does not really help us in regulating the prices, right? Different apps are coming up on the platform, and because of competition, everybody's lowering prices.
Yep.
You're buying a car for 700 and 900,000 shillings, but at the end of the day, whatever you're getting home is very little. Mind you, we have 3 types of drivers.
Okay.
We have part-time drivers, people who have a formal job and this they do as part-time. We have drivers who own their own vehicles, and we have drivers who have been given these vehicles. So at the end of the day, they have to pay the owner of the vehicle a certain amount.
Okay.
So all these people, you cannot categorize them as the same.
Yeah.
So what the government is not helping us is they are not regulating these guys. They're not regulating the prices. Everybody comes up with a price. And these apps, they only look at their commission. So if you do a trip 200, 300, they really don't care. It's about their commission. But now you have to worry about the wear and tear of the vehicle. You have to worry about the car cleanliness. You have to worry about the insurance. You have to worry about the parking. So we need the government to come in and regulate these prices. Because they lower prices anyhow they want.
Solomon, even as I listen to you, I understand what you're saying, because there are countries around the world that have protected their people and have ensured that what you're saying, that Uber doesn't even come into their country, or if they do, the competition is so stiff because of the protection the government affords. But that's called protectionism when it comes to trade or with businesses. And there are many countries in the West who have actually just simply not allowed Uber. Now, when you are talking about business, and this is a business, a vibrant business, surely does this situation that you describe, which in my opinion is fairly dire, does it not require a little more inventiveness for you to be a little more creative? Because this was the norm, it has changed. This is now what we have. Or if you can't be creative, then why don't you just go back to the normal taxi business that was there before and take your chances like everybody else does? Because really, in this country, we have options. There are other platforms apart from Uber. There's just the regular taxi that it could be. The options are there. So are we saying that all these options
are those options there?
Yes.
No, but these other options are there. But look at it this way: we are moving ahead. We are running away. We're developing.
Yeah.
So we are coming into a digital world. It is only convenient. So you can imagine, CT, you seated there and you need a taxi and you have to come out to look for a taxi. And you can always request it from your phone, which is convenient for you. You see?
The latter.
So saying that we're going to go back to what it was, it's backwards. We just need to regulate what is there. In fact, if it's possible, even the people who are taxis who are not using digital platforms, they should be actually told the benefits of it. Right? So the only thing that we are saying is that we need the government to regulate these prices.
Is it possible?
You look at it this way. You have drivers. If today you ask a driver if he has NHIF or NSSF or he has any kind of insurance, they have zero. Every time is like Tuchange. This has happened. There is something going wrong here. There's something going wrong here. We need to have a prestige about this business. We cannot treat it like the way Boda started.
True. Solomon, this now calls for lobbying and engagement with the government. What's the best way for you guys to engage with the government? Is it possible for you to partner, for example, with, I'm sure even Uber, for them, it works in their advantage if you're able to engage the government so that the government can create even conducive environment for you as Uber drivers, so that then it is able to thrive. You're able to thrive in business.
Do they have a union? Are they part of a union?
we have an association. Like in Mombasa, there is an association. It's called CDCA. Which has a chairman, it has a treasurer, it has a secretary, it's an organizing secretary. We have our own association here in Mombasa. We have tried to engage the apps. We have tried to engage Uber, we have tried to engage Bolt, we have tried to engage them. But what we are getting from them is that they don't recognize our association. So it's now for us to push for them to listen to us and recognize our association. That's the only time we can be able to have a discussion with them and put them on a platform where we're able to discuss.
Have you engaged government authorities like the county?
We have. Actually, there is a bill that Senator Sakaja was trying to push that was at the Senate.
Yep.
NTSA came to us. There was something they were circulating, and they brought it to Mombasa, where it was to go through a public participation, which we did. So we are yet to hear from them what they decided. We gave them our grievances, and we told them what we required them to do for us. We are still waiting for them to come up with that. So we have tried to engage them with these measures. That's why sometimes we hear these people are striking, we are not working, we are not this, because we are trying to compel the app owners to come and discuss with us. Because at the end of the day, they need money, we also need money.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, we cannot be making losses and they're making profits out of their commissions. And the fact that they're taking advantage of people being desperate. You know, at this point in time, with even the corona season, now you think to yourself, do I go to work or do I not go to work?
Sure.
Yep, that's
right. So you're sometimes compelled to go to work. Like now, I can give you an example. Bolt introduced a platform called Light. It's way cheaper than a tuk-tuk. So now you're in competition with tuk-tuks. And now they're compelling. What they're doing is just a brain game. They put a platform which is cheaper. Then now the riders will start using the cheaper app. Now they will compel drivers to use the cheaper app because we want to be in business.
Yeah.
So the people who have, you being a customer, if you get into a car and it's not clean, how does that say? You want money, you want to clean your vehicle, you want to put air freshener, you want it to look good. But with the money that these people are paying, we're not going to manage to do all that. So they're running about quantity, not quality.
For them, it's about the numbers.
Yes, it's about the numbers. How many trips are you going to make? Okay. It's not about the quality.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Solomon.
Okay.
Asante, and have a good day. Let's hear from Maxwell.
Have a good morning.
Thank you.
Maxwell is in Lokichogio. Maxwell, good morning.
Morning. How are you guys?
Very well. Maxwell, are you an Uber driver or a past Uber driver?
I am a past Uber driver. I worked for around 6-7 months. I used to own a car, and then I sold it because then the idea of Uber was brilliant. And then when I came in those 6 months, everything changed. Then Uber Chap Chap was introduced. I own a 1300cc, but I still couldn't hack it to break even because then I was paying a loan. Having bought a new car, I was paying a loan. So I think the involvement that the government needs is, number one, then regulate the prices of fuel. As in a better way, as in make it better for people to even operate, even Matatu, because I've also worked in Matatu. Right now I'm working for an NGO as a driver. But then I still feel what these people talk about, because there are instances I would even carry a client. The fee is 300 shillings, and this client has a discount of 300 shillings. So what then do you, because you've carried this person and you're expecting something from them.
Yep, and it's a free ride.
So that they're enjoying a free ride. And then these guys take a week or two before they pay you that money that they owe it to you because of either it's a corporate client or because the payments were not as instant. And at the same time, you're supposed to fuel your car, you're supposed to go home with something, you're supposed to feed your kids. So there's so much the government can do, because I am aware that the AA charges are around 50 shillings per kilometer. That is, I think, the lowest, or rather the highest that somebody can charge. The government can still put that into law, that even if you're offering this service, you can't charge less than 50 bob per kilometer, so that it can also make sense for these guys, because you don't want to go out and then you're working with a frustrated driver.
That's very true. Maxwell, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, have a good day, guys.
Very well.
Cheers.
put.
Thanks, Maxwell.
Well, there are very many ways of looking at this issue, and I think one of them is we need to talk to the app themselves. We also need to reach out to Sakaja and just find out, and other legislators as well. There's a transport committee in the Senate. There's a transport committee in the National Assembly. Have they been listening to these people who are basically operating this business? What concerns? Because even Uber itself may have its own concerns, may have its own things that it would really like to have a conversation with the government over. It's possible. It's important to talk to the government on this. CT, we're coming to the end of today's show, and there was a proverb about genius and dressing for work and all. And tell us the proverb and why you chose that particular proverb today.
Common sense is a genius dressed in working clothes. You see, when you think of the word genius, you think of something exceptional, something that is a little way out, something that really, really stands out. And common sense, on the other hand, by its very definition, is something that is normal, something that isn't really that outstanding. And yet, the two are the same. And why they're the same in my mind is because of the applicability. If you want to consider something complicated, the complication often arises in you not understanding it. But if then this thing which is complicated is made simpler, surely. Let me cap it by a simple quotation, okay? Real genius is in simplicity.
Bas. Okay. Get it. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow. Nduoko, CT Buga, and Eric Latif saying goodbye. Have a lovely day. It's now 10 o'clock.